Oh boy. Yes. Hey yo, what's going on, all my gamers, all my reaction gamers? The title is correct. I am, in fact, going to go through this entire video. It might be spread out over a few parts because I don't know if I can make a video that long, especially because I will be, I mean, this is a reaction video, so I will be giving my commentary in the throughout the whole thing. So, yeah, I hope you guys are ready for a long one because I'm not. This is about 6 hours long, and to technically be a ethical reaction, I have to make it into 12, which I doubt I will, but I'm going to talk and we're going to get through this, chat. The Cinder situation in its entirety. Let's go.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy was written by the author J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right.
It is one of the best-selling books of all time, selling over 150 million copies.
Let's go.
If you want to read the entire trilogy, then it's around 1,000 pages. And considering that it's one of, if not the best written fantasy world ever created, then hey, it's actually a small price to pay. This means that for 1,000 pages, you could.
Am I really just that out of touch with books that I didn't know that 1,000 pages was that much? Like the whole thing of the Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I did not read the Cinder document, the second one, the thousand year Blood War one, but I knew that someone was gonna probably eventually make a video. I figured it would be Mujin. And so I was like, I'm just going to leave it for that because I'm not reading that, bro. I'm just not. And I'm sure someone else will give a better interpretation than I would have. So I want to listen to that first.
Either choose to immerse yourself in one of the best written fantasy worlds of all time, or read a 1,000-page Google Doc about
Google Docky.
I wish I was kidding. 1,000 pages. All dedicated
MLA
purely
format
to VTuber drama. How do you even get here? What even got us to this point?
I don't know.
It's only one of the biggest incidents in
it
VTubing history. You see, Cinder was one of the biggest and most successful
followers
independent English-speaking VTubers in the world. Now look, some people will argue with me. She didn't have tens of thousands of concurrent viewers and she didn't have 1 million followers, but her community was so ridiculously loyal and held so much influence that she truly was starting to reach lengths that only other legendary VTubers had attained.
It's kind of crazy too, just how much of the pyro pubs really stayed with her throughout this whole situation, because I've made a few, although I made videos on it, right? But recently I've been making, I've made shorts on it. If you guys want to check out the shorts page, the shorts that I've made on it have had a lot of the pyro pups, because I didn't really I kind of gave a middle of the road opinion and let the pyro pups try to give me their opinion. And there was a lot more in the comments than I thought there were going to be that were positive about Cinder. And when I go and look at her, her, what is it, her live stream, she still has like, what, an 8K at some point or something like that. She has a lot of followers that are still loyal to her. It's kind of crazy.
For example, in the first 4 months of 2024, she had made over $65,000 just in bit donations on Twitch. This ranked her as the 5th most donated to Twitch streamer on the platform, right behind other streamers like Queso and Jinx.
Queso made
she was the top VTuber on that list. In January 2025, she became a partial owner of the company GamerSubs. This is an extremely big deal, and it's only been achieved by one other VTuber, which was Shy Lily. I mean, she even had an article written about her back in 2023 with the title, Cinder banked on VTubing success and the investment is paying off. She'd only been a VTuber for a few years, but she was already reaching lengths no one could have ever dreamed of. In other words, the sky was the limit. And one of the reasons for that incredible success was, of course, her design and the art style associated with it. The artist behind that model would be none other than Nanoless.
I'm not gonna lie, one of the biggest things that made me want to follow and watch Cinder was the fact that the model, how do I say this? It's gonna be inappropriate either way, so I'm just gonna say it. The model was almost true to real life. Let's just say it like that. And as someone who actually seen her in real life at TwitchCon, yes, at TwitchCon, and that perform when she was on stage. She is definitely one of the more, how do I say this? Cinder definitely had pretty good representation from her model.
Was referred to as Nana. She'd be Cinder's artist from the very beginning and would work on every single model of hers. Both of them benefited greatly from their working relationship. On April 18th, 2025, Nano would post the most recent model she had made for Cinder. It would, of course, receive a lot of attention, and you'd even...
Oh my god, bro. This is nuts. These models are insane,
Cinder commenting,
bro.
"Thank you for another amazing model, Nano." She made that comment on April 19th. 2025 in barely 7 days
Don't
later,
judge
with
me.
No prior warning and completely
I mean, no one would
blue,
judge me, right?
Nano
We know she
make
has
this tweet
something insane.
Saying, "Hello, I'm here to share something that has affected me personally and hurt others. This was very hard for me, but I feel it is necessary. Please do not send hate to anyone on my behalf. This is all I want to say." Linking a Google Doc with the title, "Terminating my work with Cinder." This would receive over 12 million views. In the document itself, we could see DMs between Nano and Redacted for the most part. The reason why this was a big deal is because Redacted, otherwise known as Red, was Cinder's manager. In these DMs, he would slander other creators, sometimes Cinder's friends. But worst of all, what these DMs showed us was the fact that Red tried to actively sabotage and blacklist other VTubers from being able to work with Nano. And again, some of the people affected were
as any
some
boyfriend
of
would do, of course.
Friends. Right? After this document would be posted, every top VTuber in the industry would leave a comment in support. And just as people were attempting to wrap their head around this, barely 6 minutes later, Bao the Whale, one of the pioneers of independent English VTubing, and someone who is practically friends with everyone in this space,
who's also kind of going through it right now, but still,
would also make a tweet saying, "I was very hurt by someone I thought was a friend," referring to Cinder and linking her own Google Doc. And worst of all, we'd see that due to conversations between Red and Nano, Nano would eventually decide to cancel the model she was working on for Bao. Bao at some point would vent about this in her friends group chat in which Cinder was a part of. Everyone would support her except Cinder. And Cinder knew
that is still a pretty wild thing, in my opinion. The fact that you were in that group chat. I know I shouldn't be pausing that much, right? Because we're going through a summary of things that we already know, especially me, because I did react to the original Mujin video, so I know for a fact that I've been through all this, right? We've been through all this. We all know like the premise of this, but still, this one was this one is definitely a wild one. That's for sure.
Very well that her model
was
canceled,
that's a crazy kind of thing to do.
This further pushed the narrative that Cinder was a backstabber who never took her friends seriously. You could see the immense support Bao received here and how everyone in this space is her friend by all the replies on her tweet, wishing her well. Less than 20 minutes later, Bao's own music video editor would also post his own account of how he was treated by Red in DMs. And you'd see another VTuber by the name of Spite also make her own document, saying that for years...
Boy, oh boy. If you want to talk about someone who has thrived in this situation from then until now, Spite has definitely gotten the most out of this. That's for sure. I think she's like averaging what? I don't even know what she averages. A couple thousand viewers at this point. She definitely. How do I say that? I'll say it how it is. I think she's starting to get. She definitely got the recognition that she deserves now as a VTuber. I think she's definitely got that. You know, you typically don't want to be the one to get the jump through drama, because then people are gonna only say that you get it through drama, but people are staying, so she's definitely got something that people want. That's for sure. It was just going.
She's been harassed by Cinder's community for being seen as a cheap copy. That Cinder wouldn't acknowledge her and would even actively try to blacklist her, even though she literally started streaming before Cinder's career even began. And finally, Silvervale, another VTuber who could be considered a pioneer of independent English VTubing, would also make her own document on.
I met Cinder, by the way. I actually was fortunate enough to meet her. One at TwitchCon during her meet and greet, and then after in Artist Alley when she was walking around. She is the sweetest, bro. I love Silvervale. I'm just glad that after everything that's happened, she has still been able to keep her head up and, you know, continue streaming, because I feel like Silvervale has been screwed over by so many different people and companies and controversies that she didn't deserve, right? Like, she's just standing there. It really is her just standing there. And people are just wanting to mess with her all the time, and I don't understand why. Right? I mean, obviously, like, one of them does make sense because of the Twitter. No, it doesn't. I get it, but I definitely don't excuse it. Like the Twitter freaks and Hogwarts Legacy and all that, which Hogwarts Legacy 2 might be coming out, so if she plays it, I'm definitely gonna. We're all gonna form a protective wall around Silver. Yeah.
Cinder, telling us how Cinder was obsessed with her for years, trying to be her friend, even though Silver had expressed that she wasn't interested. And worst of all, how as her model was being canceled due to discussions between Red and Nano, Cinder would be messaging her, congratulating her on achievements. Yet again, pushing the narrative that she is a two-faced backstabber. As this was all happening, the pressure was mounting very hard on Cinder. This is when she'd make a tweet saying that effective immediately, Redacted will no longer be managing or overseeing my VTuber activities. He no longer represents me as a creator, my brand, or my intentions. I'm sorry, everyone. I will make a larger response.
He got reduced from manager to boyfriend. But I repeat myself.
When I'm able. Now look, most of these DMs did have Red, but Nano would specify in her document that based on working with Red and Cinder over the years, she's sure that they speak for each other and that there's no reason to believe that Red was acting without Cinder's consent and knowledge.
I don't understand. Wait, what? Let me see that. Wait, hold on. Let me hear that one more time. Sorry.
They speak for each specify in her document that based on working with Red and Cinder over the years, she's sure that they speak for each other and that there's no reason to believe that Red was acting without Cinder's consent and knowledge. Regardless though, people thought that this was a step in the right direction until Vampeaches, another VTuber, would reveal that 4 years ago, Cinder had referred to Red as her boyfriend. This was not revealed by anyone else writing these documents, even though they fully knew this.
Having a boyfriend in the VTubing community, no. That's not gonna fly.
For the broader VTuber community, this was the first time they were hearing about it. It backfired on Cinder tremendously. And what made it so much worse is that this post got community noted, saying that Red acted with Cinder's knowledge and consent, both of which directly engaged in libel.
The biggest kind of oof you could ever have.
And as people thought this couldn't get worse, as they were still grappling with the fact that Red is Cinder's boyfriend and this was revealed for the first time, some dude Rain randomly comes in, posts a Google document, and reveals to us that Cinder had cheated with him on Red, showing
this one was definitely the weirdest because it does make her look bad, sure, and I guess that's kind of the point of what was supposed to happen, but who are you? Where did I feel like after I read this guy's docu, it's like, where did you come from? What? I don't know. Anyways, go ahead.
Us old DMs from her previous persona. Yeah, as someone who was watching all of this unfold live, I could tell you right now, I have never seen such chaos unfold in such a short amount of time. At this point, the pressure could not have been crazier. Everyone was waiting for a proper statement from Cinder, and it would only be a day later, on the 27th of April, that she would post a Google Doc with the title, My Apology. It would be clearly written in a rush during panic, and it was very bad, making the situation way worse. But don't take my word for it. Some of Cinder's closest, most loyal friends would express this themselves. Yoclash, who has known Cinder for a long time and worked with her as an
I met Yochi, by the way. She's actually very nice. She's very pretty. She has a really cool she has a very cool way of dressing. I didn't take a picture with her, but she signed my TwitchCon badge, but she's really, really cool.
Artist would say, I'm so disappointed. You have known Red since your college days and have a long-term relationship. How can you think it's okay to just put all the blame on him and pretend you didn't know what he was saying or doing as your manager? I don't believe this. She was saying this in reference to the fact that most of Cinder's apology appeared to be her throwing Red under the bus, saying that she was not aware of the majority of things he was doing. Lena would express the same thing, saying this is someone you supposedly loved and worked close with as a team for years. I can't imagine for the sake of an online image throwing someone away so effortlessly, claiming you didn't know what they were doing. There's just no way. You had everything. You had a massively supportive community, a group of girls who stuck by you. You're a partial owner of a company. People would die to be where you're at, and you actively sabotage the people closest to you as well as creators that had nothing to do with you. And of course, one can't mention the replies on this post without mentioning Shy Lily, garnering over 8 million views and over 150,000 likes, in which she calls out Cinder very aggressively, highlighting the same points we saw with Yoclash and Lena, while also calling for her accountability. Look, it was safe to say that after this apology, it was over. People would go as far as burning their own Cinder merch, and would of course start making memes of the entire
look up to Cinder reading the doc.
The fallout would be immense and unprecedented. She'd lose over 50,000 followers on Twitch and would lose tens of thousands of followers on her Twitter. She would go completely radio silent, and her name would become a painful reminder as to what could happen when you let fame and numbers get to you while completely disregarding the people who care about you. This is how things would be for 5 months. But that, of course, would be until Cinder would come back with no prior announcement on October 8th and post this tweet saying, the burden of proof is on the accuser, not the accused. They lied to you. Here's 1,000 pages of proof linking a Google Doc. And yes, just like I said, unfortunately, it's real. It's actually 1,000 pages. 99.99% of people did not bother reading the whole thing.
No,
honestly,
absolutely
I don't blame
not.
them. There are many people who sought to understand what the hell's in this document through summaries,
I think by the time that we really got to the 1,000 page Cinder docu, I think people were already over it. Like, this whole thing has been gone for, like Mujin said, almost half a year. So at that point, no one was really willing to read the entire thing out. Everyone had their opinion of it, and then everyone was just looking for someone to summarize it. But other than that, I don't think anyone really read the whole thing. No, actually, no. I know someone who did. I know for a fact it was streamed the entire time, and that was Rima. And I think it took her like a week or two to do it, which that sounds awful. But shout out to Rima. She actually ended up doing the entire thing. But she was like the only person I saw read it. I saw Kenji try to like TTS it. I don't think he got through it all. Like, everyone scrambled for this and no one read it. I didn't read it, bro.
The R's, and honestly, nothing can truly tell you unless you go through it yourself. Yeah. You have to see the small details, the wording used, the way things were written, presented. And seeing that I've already made a video on what happened back in April of 2025, I figured that it's my responsibility to make a video about this response. Purely because I hate myself, but also because no one else would. And again,
it's true.
I don't
Nobody
blame them.
would.
So make sure to have a seat, because this is going to be my longest video ever made, where I present you this document in the most objective way possible. So without further ado, let's do this. But first, a sponsor I'm sure you'll find interesting.
Who is this going to even be?
I'm sure you do too. Problem is, if you want to play a game that's anime themed, then most likely it'll have gacha mechanics. Well, Duet Night Abyss noticed that.
Duet Night
They were
Abyss.
meant to be a gacha game, but took the decision, as they were gathering player feedback, to just remove the gacha system completely. No stamina limits, no soft pity.
Despite that, I don't think Duet Night Abyss is popping off as hard as it should be. Because yes, removing the... You know what? We'll leave that for the gacha channel. Chat, you want to hear me talk about gacha... YouTube.com/BlueDemonRin. That's where I'm at with my main channel. But yeah,
boss challenges or just in co-op.
It's beautiful, and I love the design and the combat looks good. I will say that
it's free, respects its players' time, and is available on both PC
I heard
and
it does
mobile,
not,
both
but whatever.
Android and iOS. And the best part in all of this is that it's coming out now. More specifically, on the 28th of October. So if that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to click the link in the description or the pinned comment to get the game today, including up to 107 free
this is out already.
And 7 free characters. Thank you so much, Duet Night Abyss, for sponsoring this video. All right, so as I mentioned, this document is actually 1,000 pages. The way it's divided is in 13 different sections. These, of course, can vary. One could have 4 pages. The other one could have 230. Some of these sections are dedicated to specific people, most notably the ones who posted the most damaging Google Docs back in April of 2025. We're going to read the first 3 sections together, seeing that they're less than like 25 pages total. And then throughout the other sections, I'll be doing a combination of reading, plus summarizing, plus skipping all the repetitive parts, because this document was written terribly. I can guarantee you it was not a pleasant read. And the last thing I'm going to say before I start is that after reading the first section titled An Overdue Response, I'm going to have a few disclaimers before we keep going. These will be fairly important in the grand scheme of things. So no more stalling. Let's actually get to reading.
Let's do it.
Cinder would say, "Hi everyone. It's been over 5 months since everything happened.
Sorry,
I have never been good with words, and I'm especially bad at verbalizing my feelings. I've always hid my insecurities, and it's hard for me to open up about this, even to the people closest to me. It was nearly 2 a.m. for me on April 26th when Nanoless and Bao posted their documents together after I had finished streaming earlier in the night. I was awake for almost 48 hours by the time I posted my apology. Looking back at it, no, it wasn't good. I was not in a sound state of mind when it was written. I was blindsided by any of this coming out and the accusations made against me. No one involved tried contacting me privately beforehand. I was unable to eat, sleep, or do anything else but watch more documents and statements be released while everything fell apart. I didn't have Red. I didn't have my friends, but I had the weight of the entire internet waiting to see what I was going to say."
Where was Red? Red should have been there. Surely she's not saying that... it doesn't matter.
And how I was going to say
let's just keep going, because I don't want to make it any
subject
before we get to
any
growing
list of allegations. I didn't have time to put it all together cohesively anyways. I was petrified. How could I possibly respond correctly to a coordinated effort like this in the state I was in without just blindly accepting fault for all the things I didn't do or never knew happened?
Right.
I rushed to get something out, defend myself the best I could in the heat of the moment, and post it just so I could rest. No matter what I would end up saying, it would never have been good enough. It took me a long time to mentally recover and have the ability to face any of this.
I will say that was true. It was almost like an Avengers level attack. It was like everybody, it was like at the last scene of an anime where everyone attacks at once. Like they were trying to go for the KO. And for like a lot of people, it worked.
Again, I couldn't look at anything Cinder related without breaking down. All of my fans that looked up to me were led to believe I was evil and encouraged to destroy or donate my merch. Almost everyone I knew or cared about turned on me in an instant, and anyone who's ever had anything to say about me did. I had only one of my close friends message me after everything was out there. I received rape, dox, and death threats over these accusations, so I stepped away from the internet. I reconnected with Red, and we worked things out between ourselves. When we were both ready to, he helped me with the long process of making this document. I didn't say almost anything else to anyone soon.
He's back! Oh my god, bro. I hate the mention of Red and anything about him. Red really is the one that pisses me off the most. Like, if there's anyone who I really dislike out of this entire thing, it's gonna be Red more than anything.
Privately or publicly, because no one would believe me until I had absolutely everything put together to post all at once in one place.
Right.
So yeah, already one hell of a way to start the 1,000-page novel, right? Next up, we'd have a subsection called Purpose of this document, with 5 different bullet points. The first one would say, to present the full story and the facts and evidence around what happened with complete transparency, defend myself against what's been said about me, and provide mine and Red's perspectives and motivations about each situation. It wasn't my choice to make this public, but since it is, my side of the story matters too. The second point would be to take accountability for everything that each of us are guilty of in the past couple of years, whether they were revealed in the original documents or not. This document will not absolve either of us of all wrongdoing, and it isn't trying to. Point 3 would say, dispel rumors, misconceptions, and theories about me, show how and why things actually occurred, and point out and refute discrepancies and lies in the claims or statements made against me. We've done things wrong, but the amount and degree of them has been incredibly exaggerated or completely made up. Point 4 would say, this document contains speculation. Baseless accusations were made against me without evidence, so I've kept speculation labeled as such in this document. Most of it is supported by circumstantial evidence, but it should not be treated as solid fact. So just so you know, since I actually read the document, most of this speculation would be in the 8th section of the document, titled The Breakdown. There would also be some in Silvervale's section. Objectively speaking, when you say speculation with someone who has such a loyal audience like Cinder, the one thing that comes to mind is how dangerous that is. But anyway, we'll get to that later. The 5th point would say, this document is not to fuel harassment or spread hate towards anyone involved. I am doing what's listed above and posting this document in the same public setting the original documents were. If you have harassed anyone involved in my defense, you are not my supporter. Your actions are reprehensible, and I've never advocated for anyone to do this for any reason. I'm sorry to anyone who's been affected by any actions of Rogue community members against my principles. So these 5 reasons outline her purpose.
Because I mean, like a lot of people say, you could always try to tell people not to do anything, right? But you're never gonna get everybody who doesn't want to. Who you're never gonna get to everybody when you tell people not to harass someone, right? It's just not gonna happen. Although it should, and you wish for the best, but at the end of the day, sometimes all you could really do is wish for the best and hope that people leave people alone, but they're not going to.
She does make it a point at the end to tell her community members, do not harass anyone, and if you did, you're not a part of my community. That's always an important thing to add when you're a content creator with the community. Cinder then says, I have been made out to be a two-faced, greedy, jealous, psychopathic narcissist who's maliciously used, stalked, sabotaged, and betrayed those closest to me and anyone around me for my own gain for years, manipulating my way to the top like some kind of evil mastermind.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. That would be the gist of it, yes. If I were to put it in so many terms, those would be most of them, yeah.
You were lied to. There are things I've done wrong, but this image of me could not be further from reality.
Sure,
go ahead. This was a complete public assassination of my character over what were lies and assumptions, followed by my cancellation and disappearance, with my accusers profiting from it. If I was really the awful person I was made out to be, then this document wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have any way to refute the claims made against me. I could have just continued streaming and profited from the drama and the over 30 million views this situation garnered. I could have let everyone forget about this and come back like nothing ever happened, but it's not true, and I couldn't allow myself to move on without making things right. Everything that's come out and stories that followed have been blown way out of proportion and turned into crazy.
I'm not gonna lie. Since you made this 1,000 pages and it was so poorly written, you honestly might as well have come back, like you said, without saying anything. Because I couldn't tell you, I couldn't name 3 people who went through the entire thing. The only 2 that I know is Rima and Mujin. Nobody else. You might as well have just came back.
Conspiracies. Both Red and I have done nothing wrong, and all of that will be addressed here. But the story everyone
bullshit. I call lies on that man. That man right there. Me and him gonna have a discussion. That's for sure.
Was told was not the reality.
I have no way to ever. That's a joke. I never would. Allegedly. Go ahead.
Of what happened. Every single person I've interacted with in the past almost 5 years, even those closest to me, and every single interaction with them would have to have been fake for the story told about me to be true. I believe that there were 2 people responsible for how things played out, with a third person merely having an axe to grind against someone they never liked. Nanoless lied overwhelmingly about what happened between her and Red, sat back, and played everyone, including my friends. Shy Lily lied about me from the start, orchestrated things behind the scenes, and manipulated the public to their side. Silverveil took the opportunity to lie all about our interactions together, making things even worse for me. They had the most to gain from my cancellation, including their own satisfaction. None of them could take accountability for their own actions and pushed it all onto me instead. The only 2 people that could disprove their lies were just made into lying manipulators and wiped off the internet. She's of course referring to herself and Red. Aside from the labeled speculation, everything presented in this
already, I don't believe her. But again, we're gonna go through the whole thing.
Document is true to the best of my knowledge.
I'm just saying right now, I'm very skeptical of what she's saying.
There isn't a reason to hide anything anymore.
I'm just saying the way that she, like, if you were to tell me just an analyst alone, I could have probably gotten that, right? Because she is an artist. But you're telling me that the people who grew more are two of the biggest VTubers, Shy Lily and Silverveil? Maybe. I don't know.
The bulk of what's shown here was over the past 2+ years. Keep in mind that no matter who you are, opinions, thoughts, and feelings can change a lot over such a long period of time, for better or worse. I went back and forth on a lot of things to put in here, asking myself if I should just leave them out for the people I still care for, or keep them in for my own sake. No matter what evidence is included in this document, it wouldn't be surprising if it's claimed that even with all of the evidence, all of this is just me trying to lie, manipulate, and gaslight my way out of what happened, and that no one should possibly believe me again. To show that I stand by everything written here, and that I'm sorry for the things I've done wrong, I made a very hard decision. I'm giving up my part ownership position of Gamer Subs. I've worked so hard for them since December of
that I don't believe that already, because there's no way the company was going to still be within the good light if you were partial owner and all this came out, right? Because a lot of what drives in a lot of attention to Gamer Subs is the VTubers, and if you're like public enemy number 1, I assume they probably asked you to step down. However, that is just my speculation, of course. I'm just saying this is this is not the surprising part.
2022, and earning this position was one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. I'm honored they chose to give me the opportunity, and I've been immensely proud to have the title. As sad as I am to do this, I feel the need to protect the company I love, the people that work there, and everyone associated over my own interests. Gamer Subs suffered a lot of damage when all the accusations were made about me, and that fell on my shoulders. This is my responsibility as part owner, and I don't want any more harm or negativity to come to them by having this position. I didn't have to do this, and I wasn't asked, forced, or coerced into making this decision. There are things more important to me than business. I notified them of my decision in June, and it will take effect at the same time this document is published. Each tab in this document is about the people and events related to the claims made against me, where I've provided links to each person's respective statements for reference, the evidence, context, and mine and Red's thoughts around each situation. You're intended to read each section, and in the order they're presented. This document should be viewed in desktop and light mode for the formatting to appear correctly. Some information and screenshots appear in multiple sections for whoever it's relevant to. The first few sections, being Nanoless, Bao, Vcard, and Numi's concert and Shy Lily, culminate in the section breaking down what you've seen throughout them, with the last few sections of this document being standalone. Unless stated otherwise, every link in this document is working at the time this is posted. This document will not be edited after it's posted either. Because we live in 2025, I need to say that this document was written without the use of AI. I understand some of the things in this document may be damaging to the people involved. They understood that their claims would be damaging to me before they publicly made them too. Everyone can review the evidence for themselves and decide what really happened, and if I really am the person you were led to believe me to be. The burden of proof is on the accuser, not the accused. So yeah, one hell of a thing to start things off. And already we have some pretty hefty accusations, with Cinder blaming Shylily, Nanolist, and Silverveil of going after her on purpose. Later in the document, you'll get to make up your own opinion after seeing the proof that she provides. The next section in this document is titled Redacted, in which she speaks about, well, her partner. Before we get into that though, I have some pretty important disclaimers, starting with the first one. Some people, even after reading this first section, already had doubts. For example, with Cinder saying she didn't use AI, saying that there's no way you could possibly write 1,000 pages yourself. That's crazy. Well, after having read these pages myself, I can tell you right now, no AI was used. In fact, there's one...
No, that's not really that crazy. Because chat, writing Google Docs and writing letters was like way before AI. And it's like, it took her 5 months. I feel like if this was AI, it would have taken her maybe 1 or like 2 weeks. For 5 months, I think this is definitely real, yeah.
Specific typo in which Red forgets to finish a sentence that you'll find halfway through the video that completely caught me off guard, and I left it in the video. So you'll get to actually see my confusion. Another thing that people doubted from the moment this document was posted was Cinder saying this document will not be edited after it's posted either. The reason why people started having doubts shortly after this was posted was because not even an hour afterwards, some sections would start to be missing pages. So I took the time to research it. On my browser, the Nanolist document would be sitting at around 173 pages.
Right.
Some people would claim that Nano's section used to be 230 pages. Others would say that it was 210. So where did all these pages go? Why is there so much confusion? Well, thanks to a viewer of mine by the name of Derek, I was able to get my hands on an archived link of the document when it was first uploaded. It takes way too long to load the sections on the top left, but I can't really blame it since it's 1,000 pages. In the Nano section from the archived document, we could see that the page count is actually different. It was actually off by many pages. So I sat down, put on my detective hat, and compared every word, every single subsection and image included, and my conclusion is that it was the same exact document, word for word.
What?
I tried to do this with other sections too. Nothing had changed. So what gives? Well, it seems like it has to do with both your aspect ratio on your monitor and your resolution.
Yeah,
at a 16:9 aspect ratio on a 4K resolution, this document of Nanos is 184 pages. If I were to make my browser go from horizontal to vertical, the page count all of a sudden becomes 116. Yeah, it's that stupid. So this simply means that the page count's different on the archived version because the person who archived its monitor showed that page count in particular based on the resolution and aspect ratio.
That's pretty silly.
Fairly important disclaimer because I've seen quite a few people throw this accusation around.
That's so
it
silly.
Is false. Cinder truly didn't use AI and truly didn't change anything.
Well, at least Mujin figured it out, right?
Because the third important disclaimer, and I promise I'm almost done here, is the fact that this document took a very long time to make. And Cinder indirectly showed us proof of that. On page 205 of the 8th section titled The Breakdown, Cinder would be talking to us about something that happened in Cinder's lore video that she made for her May 2025 debut. Now, Cinder would link an image of the video's thumbnail where we can clearly see it was uploaded 3 weeks ago. The video was uploaded on August 2nd, 2025, and Cinder had posted her Google Doc on October 8th, 2025. This means that we can confirm without any speculation that Cinder had worked on her document for at least 5 whole weeks. But honestly, I think it was way longer.
I think
That's because in this document, you wouldn't just have many different screenshots of DMs from very different timelines. You'd also have sections in which Cinder would go through past VODs of the people she's talking about, would link the exact VOD at the exact timestamp, would transcribe exactly what was said in that VOD, and would make a comment on it. This goes on for pages upon pages upon pages. All this is to say that this document took an incredibly long amount of time. If I had to guess, more than 3 months around that time.
Yeah,
it is an incredible effort to an almost worrying degree.
I get it.
And the final disclaimer I have to tell you as we head into the second section titled Redacted is the fact that, well, barely 5 months ago, the public was made aware that both Cinder and Red are together, but under the pretense that they're girlfriend and boyfriend. The reality, though, is that they're married. As husband and wife. Now, I know this might come as a shock. Mujin, why would you reveal something like this? Isn't it private? Well, it actually used to be. It's just that someone unintentionally revealed that. And that was shortly after this document came out. Around a week after posting her document, Cinder would say, "Hi PyroPups, I'll be streaming tomorrow at 4 p.m. EST. I hope to see you there." There will be over 1,400 replies. Some of them very supportive, some of them not so much.
Right.
Now, one of the people leaving a very supportive comment
Shondo?
is none other than Shonda, a very well-known English VTuber. In her reply, she'd say, "Cinder, I think everyone deserves a second chance, and everyone deserves the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and grow. I hope that your time away has helped you. I really hope that you found a better state of mind, both for your sake and your husband's, but most importantly, for the PyroPups. And I wish you nothing but the best." All right, so overall, very wholesome, but I don't think Shondo knew that this was not public info.
What? Wait, you're telling me she was correct? Wait, she didn't mess up? Like that's real?
This was only known by some of Cinder's closest friends, which are now not her friends anymore. But I don't think Shondo did this intentionally at all. If anything, I'd be very surprised if she did. She meant well with this comment. Now, of course, I'm sure some of you watching will think to yourselves, maybe it was a mistake.
Yeah.
But think about this. Take a step back. If you know two people are together, but you're unsure of their relationship status, you'd say, "Oh, they're partners." Or, "Hey, they're in a relationship." You would never, and I mean never, refer to a couple as husband and wife unless you were 100% sure that was the case. Because why would you? Just say they're partners or in a relationship. So yeah, overall, very interesting revelation. Unfortunate that it was unintentional, but it is what it is, right? The cat's out of the bag. This is definitely an important disclaimer to keep in mind as we go through this section, because they're not just boyfriend, girlfriend. They can't just break up on a whim, right? They're committed to each other till death does them part. This means that not only Red was in a relationship with her, not only was he her manager, but he's pretty much the person she committed to until the rest of her life. Does that make this section better? Does it make it worse? Up to you to decide. But for now, let's get to reading it. Cinder would say, "Red helped me put this entire document together. We want to be upfront and honest that this was a two-person effort. His own commentary is present throughout it and is labeled as his and highlighted in blue." Red would then chime in and say, "Hello, I'm Red. I'm Cinder's longtime partner and have worked alongside her since she started this career. I helped her put this document together to set the record straight. Over the past few months, I've had to come to terms with being the reason why Cinder's image, her relationships, and her career were all ruined. I hurt people who were our friends, I effed up, and she had to answer to the world for it by herself."
So we're still putting it all on Red, right? We're putting it all on Black. Well, Red, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's a gambling term. So, okay. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess we'll go through his part and see what happens.
My actions ruined everything for her, and I'm taking responsibility and helping her pick up the pieces. I didn't want to put out something sooner. Without her, that could have made things worse. See, like this sentence right here, if ChatGPT wrote this, at least it would have added a comma, right? But as you can see, this is written by a person. He then ends this by
wait, that's supposed to have a comma in it? Oh, I didn't know that.
Saying, "I ask that you don't hold what I did against her." Cinder would then take us on the substance.
Oh, no, brother. You and me got our own problems, brother. Let's just put it like that.
Section titled Red and I. She would start this off by saying, "Red and I are still together."
That's why I still don't, like, I don't know, man. I don't believe that he acted independently when it's like, yeah, me and him are still together. He ruined my career, and, like, everything that I had worked for fell down on me. And everything was basically ruined to the point where I have to kind of start from scratch. But yeah, we're still together. Okay, bro. Yeah, it was him, all right.
Obviously, since otherwise it would have been a divorce. We had a falling out and spent time apart after the documents dropped on April 26th. But he was still here for me when I was ready to talk to him again. We were able to work things out between us and forgive each other for what happened. I wasn't planning to say anything about this again publicly, but I felt I needed to. Years ago, I cheated on Red online for my own selfish reasons, and the things I said about him were out of my own frustrations and past experiences. Yeah, that's because in Rain's document, the person she cheated on Red with, there wouldn't just be adult conversation, she'd also be talking crap behind Red's back. She says, "I made things sound much worse than they were at the time and mischaracterized the person he is. Red already knew that this happened way before it was made public in April, and no one else was ever told about it before then either. We addressed both of our problems in our relationship and moved past it a long time ago. It had nothing to do with my career or current events and isn't relevant to talk about further. We disagree, we get mad at each other, we argue, but our relationship isn't toxic or abusive in any way. I would appreciate it if the speculation around it would stop." Red and I have always had some level of communication problems, even with each other. Neither of us are good communicators beyond surface level. It's hard.
Also, yeah, I mean, it's not really like I don't know if anyone else held this opinion, but I've held this opinion in terms of not Reds,
to open up and
Rain's part of the document. I didn't feel like it was necessary. It didn't really tell us a lot. Sure, like I just nothing of I didn't feel like anything was I didn't think anything of value was added just because she cheated on Red. I really didn't, because it was so long ago and no one else had anything like that. So it just felt like so weirdly out of left field that I didn't even like take it seriously, to be honest.
Get in our own heads about things.
It's not my relationship.
And disagree with each other sometimes, and even more so working together all day, every day. Okay. It's gotten so much better over the years, but it's never been perfect. So the idea that anyone in any relationship would know about and agree with everything their partner feels, says, and does is crazy to me. I'm not the only one who's ever had a significant other keep secrets from them, and neither is Red. Every relationship is different and has its own nuances, dynamics, and problems, functioning in a way that only the two people involved know of and fully understand. No one looking in can say otherwise. Because I cheated on Red, should I assume that everyone's significant other has cheated on them in the past? Should I assume that all my friends' relationships are the same as mine? No. And for me to claim I know exactly how things work between any of them just because I'm their friend that sees them a few times a year is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. Because it's like, either you are too forgiving or you were both in on it, right? Like, you're telling me that, again, I asked this question earlier, but I got to ask it again. You're telling me that you're probably husband just came out, ruined all your relationships, made it all so it's all blamed on you, and you took it. Not only did you take him back, but you're also still covering up. You're also still okay with putting the blame on him, right? Right, and you still want to say that, yeah, I didn't know about this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're either super naive or you guys both worked on this together, right? Like, I'm not buying it at all.
For the love of God, please put more commas in your sentences. Oh my God. She'd continue. When I became Cinder, we wanted to keep our relationship private. In public, Red was simply my manager, and we hid our relationship from my friends for over a year during multiple trips.
Remember, chat, if your favorite VTuber has a manager, it's probably her boyfriend. Even if it's not, he's probably still whatever. When I came to private, I mean, I think she does GFE kind of, so it makes sense. Like, that's a whole other discussion if you're a VTuber, right?
Agreed that I'd tell my closest friends about our relationship in March of 2024 because we felt we were close enough and trusted them enough to tell them. When we traveled, my friends saw us always close by each other and showing each other our work DMs on our phones, almost all the time from chats we were both in, instead of talking about things out loud to keep up with projects while away and to keep them private between us. It's easier to say, look at this, to keep each other on the same page rather than have a verbal conversation while we were around other people at almost all times while away. What they saw at conventions or on vacations was all they saw. Only Red and I would have any idea how we worked together and acted around each other when at home. I lived with Red and his family from the summer of 2022 to the end of February 2025. I have never outright told anyone this, including my closest friends. We wanted to keep at least part of our personal lives private from everyone, even telling some people we lived apart. On stream, I've always said I lived with family friends and streamed in a basement. The basement part is true. It's where I spent the majority of my time and it's where I worked and streamed from. My career started there in 2021 with my ASMR. Red was the one with the PC, mic, and experience with content creation since it's always been his hobby. I would go there more and more often until I moved in when I became a full-time streamer. For most of my earliest streams with my PNG model, Red would be in the room with me, modding on a laptop and making sure things would run smoothly. He was there as my tech support since at the time I could barely play games, let alone understand how to use and fix OBS if something went wrong. We built my own PC and stopped needing him by my side by the time I debuted my first model in June 2022. He moved his PC into his own room and has worked from there since. Starting sometime last year, my streams kept disconnecting and we couldn't figure out why. This was going on for months, and no matter what we did, it kept happening. We thought there could be something wrong with the internet there that we couldn't fix, so as a last resort, my parents and I made space for me to move back in with them with my entire stream set up in February. We were able to fix the problem, but it ended up having nothing to do with the internet at all. I've been working and living here since, separate from Red. The reason why I'm revealing all of this now is because we could have easily gone through each other's DMs whenever we wanted in those 3 years, but we didn't. It's not like we never showed each other our messages directly. We did, all the time. But we didn't comb through each other's DMs at the end of every day to read anything we may have said. And I don't know any.
But this is just saying that you guys never verbally talk to each other. Unless I'm misunderstanding the document. If I'm misunderstanding the document, that's on me. But if this is the only excuse for it, you're telling me you just never talked about anything to anyone about any other time if it wasn't in a DM, like you never verbalized it to each other? That's kind of weird.
Anyone who'd say that's normal to do. We could just tell each other things that happened, and that was that. I never felt the need to look over his shoulder to check on anything and everything he was saying and to who. We trusted each other, and he's always had my best interest in mind.
Sure.
The next subsection would be titled Working Together, and from the first paragraph, many people would say how they'd lose hope in this document and would stop reading. That's because Cinder would say, I'm choosing to have Red continue working with me. He will be doing most of what he did for me before, but will not be doing any work-related communication for me in any channels I'm not also a part of. I now have access to his Discord account to check on things myself if I need to. It's clear to me that he learned his own lesson from what happened. He made mistakes, and I forgave him. I wouldn't be where I am without him, and he's just as much a part of Cinder as I am.
Oh my god, bro. I don't understand. Again, how do you almost have your career ruined and still keep this guy like on, I don't even want to say on payroll, but you still have him working for you? Are you sure? Like this part, I get this part, right? Where you said he's just as big a part of Cinder as you are, which I do 100% believe. I believe you when you say that, because the way you described him being like that guy, and he was your guy in the chair, basically. Not that kind of chair. That's for a different kind of chair in a hotel. Not that one. Talk about like that Genki, Ned kind of guy in the chair where he's feeding you information, or in this case, being tech support and making sure that he's modding and keeping a lot of things, making sure the train is always running, right? Let's say it like that. Making sure that the train is always running. Yeah. I got that. I completely agree. That's why I say he is as big as part of it as you. I just don't understand why you wouldn't put it off as mistakes that are forgivable, right? Like, this guy probably cost you, and this might, honestly, the way that GamerSupps is going, this might not be a crazy thing to say, but it cost you a multi-million-dollar deal where you pretty much didn't have to do anything. You just had to be a partial owner, and you're good with that. I mean, money isn't everything, but ruining your career where it's kind of your everything is kind of a big deal. I guess, man. Sure.
He wasn't just a manager that handled some messages, and he had a part in a lot of the things I did. He's always been the main creative mind behind my debut.
Also, this seems a little bit contradictory. Is he involved or is he not involved? You're saying that he is involved in one section, he's not involved in another, he knows things, he doesn't know things. You're flip-flopping here.
And other releases too. Even with how involved he was, Red is still his own person, with his own ideas, his own opinions, his own feelings towards people, his own goals, and his own ambitions, working under the same brand as me. He's always been the business sensible one out of us, and the work side of things was always his focus.
Apparently
we worked together on almost everything, but we didn't agree on everything. There have been many business or creative decisions we'd argue back and forth about, sometimes taking days to reach a compromise. Red didn't always consult with me before making his own choices in his messages with our partners. A lot of the time I agreed with what he did or said, and it was fine, but sometimes I didn't, and we either compromised or I had him walk back what he said. Red didn't tell me about every single interaction he had with people we worked with, and I didn't expect him to. I trusted him. There was never a reason for him not to tell me something important. That was until we disagreed about one of my friends, Bao. At the start of this year, we moved a lot of our work-related conversations with various artists into a project service so everything could be organized into one place. I could be included in discussions and decision-making where I needed to be, and would be able to see everything being said without having to rely rely on Red to relay every detail of the things he was handling. This was for our organization, convenience, and so I could interact with every person working with me directly. However, this didn't mean Red didn't still use his DMs to do business or talk to people we were working with. Besides the allegations in Nano's document, no one else we've worked with has ever complained about Red, and we've both worked with dozens of people who I believe would say their experience working with us was nothing but positive. Like I said in my apology, there were things Red didn't tell me about, or hid from me, and did without me knowing in his DMs. They're all shown in this document in the order below. I didn't know about these things beyond what I was told, if I was at all. Those things would be Red's inclusion of Bao and Cotton in his exclusivity deal with Nano in January 2025. Red telling Artist 1 Bao was someone he considered competition while discussing exclusivity on the same day as his deal with Nano. Red's conversation with Nano about Chai Lily in April 2025. Red's conversations with Mod 1 about Silvervale throughout 2024 and into 2025. Red asking Artist 2 about not working with Silvervale in March 2025. And Red's conversation with Artist 1 about Silvervale in April 2025, which Artist 1 told me about days later. The names of Artist 1, Artist 2, and Mod 1 are hidden to protect their privacy since they weren't directly involved in everything that happened in April. They will be reintroduced later in this document. So yeah, this was definitely—
Oh god, I hate when they do this. This gets so confusing because it's like we have so much to keep in mind and make sure that we understand, but it feels like, yeah, sure. You say that Red is a swell guy, sure, but man, he sure wasn't swell the one time it actually counted. Like, if you're saying he's a great guy and he's done great work, man, the one time you definitely don't want it to happen and want it to go wrong, it went wrong.
One of the more controversial parts of this document, the fact that she's still working with Red even after everything that's happened, and it was one of the main pieces of criticism regarding these 1,000 pages, mostly because people stopped reading right then and there, thinking Cinder hadn't changed and this was just another document where she deflects blame. The final subsection in this section would be falling out. Cinder would say, the night the first documents were posted, Red was here with me. I ended my stream and he came over to see me while we worked on a few things together. We were still awake when Nano and Bao posted their documents at almost 2 a.m. EST. I didn't understand what was going on and started panicking. Red tried to explain what happened, but I blew up at him and kicked him out, regrettably refusing his help. We weren't in contact for almost a month after. I had one close friend reach out to me after things were public, and I responded to them sometime after Red was gone. I chose not to include their own message here. So yeah, in this message we could see Cinder saying, I'm so sorry blank, I'm trying to collect myself, Red and I aren't speaking right now and I'm so upset with everything. She'd continue, I was distraught, and I posted that Red was fired later that morning. I wasn't trying to throw him under the bus and avoid accountability, I was blindsided by my friends publicly pointing the finger at me for his words and actions I didn't even know about and I didn't agree with. I didn't know what else to do. In my apology, I said, as of yesterday, he is no longer working with me and I have not extensively discussed any of this with him. Because Red will continue working with me, I will be deleting this tweet sometime after posting this document. And of course, here she'd be referring to the tweet where she'd say, effective immediately, Redacted will no longer be managing or overseeing my Vtuber activities. That got community noted. So yeah, by the time this video releases, this tweet would be gone. So yeah, as I had already mentioned, this is where most people would just—
I'm going to, sure, why not? We have like days of going through this anyways. We might as well just go and check it out. Oh wait, she's like, I forgot she started tweeting again. This might actually be hard to find. October. Well, it really is a pain in the ass when she starts working again, because it's like, it's not like I can find it that easily. And everyone has been, you know what? Sure. Sure. You know what? I don't need to verify it. Go ahead.
Stop reading, right? The first section was just a couple pages. This was like 4, and the next section would be around 14 pages, at least for me, on my monitor, with these downloaded PDFs. To many, this seemed like Cinder was backtracking over the things she had said as the controversy was going on, and that she hadn't learned her lesson. I mean, she was bringing back the one guy who was blamed for her downfall. It didn't look good, but we're not even 1% through the document, believe it or not, so we still have a lot to cover before you can come up with your final opinion. The next section would be titled, My Apology and Taking Accountability. Cinder would say, now that
I definitely should have drank an entire thing of water
to reflect on my own actions, there are some details I need to point out and corrections I need to make from my apology. Then I'll go over the things Red or I or both of us did wrong so we can take responsibility. Each section after this will explain the full story around each major individual involved, anything Red and I did, and defending ourselves against everything we didn't do. Quotes from my apology will be present throughout this document to show what they were in reference to. So this is where Cinder would post her apology that she made, you know, the one that wasn't really well received by the community, and would say, the things I claimed and admitted to in my apology were based on what I knew at the time, what was published in everyone else's documents, and what Red told me right after.
Okay.
I shut him out when I shouldn't have. I made my apology without his help, without all the info in front of me, and without knowing the full scope of what happened, how it happened, or what to believe. I was under extreme stress and pressure to say something as soon as I could, and was expected to accept fault for everything I was accused of, but not guilty of doing. Some of the things I wrote were overly apologetic, and I made things sound worse than they actually were because of the severity of the situation. The main takeaway people had from my apology was that I pushed everything onto Red and didn't take accountability for anything.
Right, that's kind of what we all...
She would then have small different sections with a couple of bullet points each.
Okay.
The first one would be what I blamed Red for in my apology, because he was guilty of doing them. Him telling me how great it would be to work together with Silvervale, and the second point would be him holding a grudge against Bao.
Seriously, why is he holding a grudge against Bao? That's kind of weird.
These were the things that Cinder was blaming Red for that he was guilty of. The second section would say what I blamed Red for in my apology when I was also guilty, saying Red was the one with the business-oriented outlook on things from the start. I adopted that same mindset myself from working together as time went on. I wrongly made it sound like I was brainwashed into thinking this way in my apology. The next section would say what Red was guilty of in my apology that I didn't know about until writing it. Red and Nano ever talking about a model for Geary in November 2023. That's another VTuber. Red including Bao and Cotton in his conversation and eventual deal with Nano around exclusivity in January 2025, and bad-mouthing Mao in their DMs as if they were our shared feelings. Red talking to Nano about Chai Lily and her model in April of 2025. The next section would say things I said about Red in my apology that I was wrong about. The first thing being he did not manipulate Nano. So Cinder was saying she was wrong thinking that Red manipulated Nano in any way. And the second thing would be he did not push Nano to not work with Silvervale, and she was not a constant topic between them. Cinder would then show us another subsection saying things I took accountability for in my apology, listing 15 different things. The first one being agreeing with Red to talk with Nano about exclusivity, agreeing to specifically name Silvervale in the terms, and knowing a deal involving her was made. The second one being guilt-tripping Nano. The third one being feeling overly attached to Nano and her work. The fourth one being not knowing about what Red had said about Bao to Nano when I should have. The fifth one being not speaking to Bao about Red's feelings towards her and letting it spiral to the point it did. The sixth one being upset and taking it personally when Bao hired my video editor. The seventh one being upset when Sakamore told us he wouldn't be working with us again. The eighth one being confiding in Red about Shalily's behavior towards me. The ninth one being becoming resentful towards Silvervale. The 10th one being letting my insecurities and public comments influence my feelings towards Silvervale. The 11th one being assuming Spite copied me. The 12th one being very possessive of my design details early on in my career. The 13th one being overreacting to Ninetales Hellhound OC design, which was apologized for in the past. The 14th one being cheating on my boyfriend. The 15th one being neglecting or leaving behind friends of mine. So this was Cinder admitting that all these 15 things did happen and that she took accountability for them in her initial apology back in April 2025. She'd then continue, saying, I admitted to the world that I cheated on my secret boyfriend, and the story pushed was that I took no accountability and used him as a scapegoat. Even with all of these concessions of what I did do, I was still somehow a narcissist who couldn't accept fault. What I did was not admit to the right things the people making these claims already decided I was guilty of. They also expected me to apologize for everything I've ever done without any of it ever being mentioned, even if the matter was already settled in the past. I understand that the things my manager did that I didn't know about are ultimately my responsibility, and my ignorance doesn't change that. I should have taken more care to check up on what he was saying and doing, but I was being blamed publicly for things I had nothing to do with. My accusers went out of their way to claim Cinder did this, Cinder did that, completely disregarding Red's agency from any of his own words and actions.
Well, that's because he's an employee, and not only just an employee, but your boyfriend. There is no more, like, especially someone who is a manager, which for the most part is like, you guys kind of have to be on topic with each other, right? A manager like that has to, like, always, like, what is he just gonna throw you something random that you're not really okay with? Well, no, he's gotta know how you move and know what you're gonna say. So people blaming her for what her manager did, in my opinion, especially her boyfriend, I think it is understandable, right? He's kind of like an extension of yourself, right? If you told me that I had a manager and now he's giving me some weird ass sponsorship, well, I'm not gonna do it. He just wasted his time and got me into a sponsorship that I didn't want to do. I'd probably fire him after that, right? Oh boy, I will say this: doing this was not ideal when I am drinking a lot of water. Go ahead.
The proof I must have known about everything he's ever said and done was because they said we worked on things together on our phones during the few times a year we were traveling, and Nano's document showed 2 of my screenshots from over a year apart from separate situations where I knew more or less what had happened between her and Red. There was no other evidence presented for their claim, but they told everyone it absolutely had to be this way. Emphasis was placed on Red's usage of we and our, as if they could know for a fact that it meant Red was always speaking with my knowledge, approval, and oversight every single time he said it. This was necessary for their narrative to work against me.
Well, it's because it's not something you... Like, you're talking to people who also have relationships, right? Like, when we're talking about, like, some of the people who called you out were themselves either who, like, I mean, let's just say it, right? We're talking about Buff. Like, they're giving examples of how it would look like and what you guys knew and all this stuff. And anyone else who's been in a relationship, how you talk to people, it's like, yeah, you're going to communicate with your significant other, and it's going to assume that you are at the same time because your significant other is your manager. So, yes, when people are saying that it feels like you guys are working together and have knowledge of this, it's just because of, like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? How do I say it? Educated guesses, right? Using deductive reasoning, people would assume that. And I don't know, you're saying that that's not true, but like if it's not true, then that's kind of weird, I guess.
This is what I said in my apology about this. I do not condone anything about what Red said about Bao in these DMs either, and him using we and our in this context is abhorrently incorrect and I believe was done to gain greater credibility behind what he was saying. Right. And now here's what Red had to say about this. I have always been more or less the creative lead on things we did, like model designs, project ideas, and art in general, and Cinder often agreed with my creative judgment. She trusted me to do the communication I did for her without oversight. For example, a lot of times I would be the one talking to the artists we were working with who only knew me as Cinder's manager. If I knew the direction I wanted to take something, with or without talking to Cinder beforehand, and I said, I want this art to be like this instead of Cinder wants this art to be like this, then it felt like an awkward thing for me to say. In my mind, to the person we're working with, I'm just the manager, not the creator, not the streamer, not their client. What I myself wanted wasn't important. What Cinder wanted was. So in order to give weight to what I would say, I started using we early on, without speaking for her directly saying Cinder. If we wanted to do something a certain way, then it would give me agency by implying that we both agreed on and made the decision. That Cinder was aware of the decision being made, regardless of if she actually was or wasn't at the time, and that my words had
why
meaning.
not?
I was speaking on we, the brand's behalf.
Okay.
It became a habit of mine to talk this way regarding any projects or business dealings. I didn't start doing this because anyone told me I should be. I didn't speak like this all the time or in every single message. It's not like Cinder never knew about what I was saying when saying we. If afterwards she did disagree with me on something, then I'd have to walk back what I said and say that Cinder actually wants it this way, for example. Very often, Cinder was on the same page as me beforehand, or would agree with what I said without her knowledge using we afterwards. In the case of the exclusivity deal with Nano, I used we when talking about Bao, so it would seem like Cinder also backed how I felt. Cinder not only wasn't aware of this, but I knew she didn't agree with me about what I was saying. In our conversation, Nano said herself that she was not really down with working with people who Cinder didn't want her to. So I made sure to tell Nano how we felt, expressing my own feelings to her as if they were both of ours. This will all be shown in Nano's section.
But in our conversation, Nano said herself she was not really down with working with people who Cinder didn't want her to. So I made sure to tell... What was that I just saw? I don't know. So I made sure to tell Nano how we felt, expressing my own feelings. I kind of wish she'd given more examples of him actually walking things back. I want to see how he would walk things back. Right? He just keeps... the only thing he was just showing was in examples of the we talk. I don't want to see the we talk, like the us talk. I want to see you make a mistake and then have to walk it back afterwards. Right? If you want to give weight to you saying that this is how you spoke, and when you made a mistake, this is how it is, you have to show me that. You have to show me the mistake. We know already about how this we works. Like, that's fine, bro. I get that, sure. But show me when you messed up.
So, in other words, if someone had bothered to read the rest of this document after Red's section, they would probably be even more shocked that this guy right here was going to work with Cinder again. Right? I think all of this could have been avoided if Red didn't just say he was Cinder's manager, but if they made sure to officially announce that he was the creative lead. But who am I to judge? Cinder would continue, there are 3 things in my apology I need to correct that will be shown in full detail in this document. She started off with a subsection titled Missing Information, Lies, and Incorrect Statements in My Apology.
Okay.
The first point would be, I left out a lot of information regarding my experience with Silvervale and trying to overly apologize to her, and ended up making things sound much worse than what really happened. The second point would be, I lied about not knowing that Red spoke to Nano about Spite in 2023 to not make things worse for myself by revealing more than Nano or Spite did about what happened regarding her. That's already a...
Oh my God, bro. Honestly, I wouldn't blame anyone who just stopped right here. Right? Because it's just like, bro, you're lying about so much already. You're flip-flopping on very, very huge important things. It's like, dude, come on, man. I'm telling you, like, I myself, I'm like thinking right now, this is kind of a waste of time. Why am I doing this? But I'm already an hour in. I might as well just, like, I have a certain point where I want to end, but let's just keep going.
Very big revelation, obviously, because her apology was terrible to begin with, and the fact that she was lying too makes it even worse.
Right.
The third point would be, I was wrong about which year the situation with Nyan Tails took place in. I wrote that it was after my debut, but it was actually an entire year early.
That's fine.
She then continued, my apology
Sure.
and the accusations made against me did not cover everything Red and I have done wrong. I've laid out everything below that will be presented throughout this document so we can address them and take responsibility.
Okay.
Explaining the motives and reasoning behind our actions are not meant to justify or diminish them or the feelings of those affected, but to understand why they happened. The next subsection will be titled Everything One of Us or Both of Us are Guilty of. That accountability is taken for or shown in this document in the order they're presented in. We both became neglectful of many friendships and personal relationships online and IRL.
Sure.
Red and I became consumed by our work and prioritized my career over all else. Red considered everyone, including our friends, competition to some degree, and I agreed. Red and...
Oh my God. Okay, sure.
And I left Tricky at our hotel in Tokyo one day during our Japan trip in October 2024.
Where the hell did that come from? I don't even remember that happening. Why the hell did you do that? That's so bad.
4. I chose to distance myself from Cotton after what happened between her and a friend. I tried
What
going
was
back
that?
on my
Wait, what was
agreement
that
with the
about?
artist Nixiu in April 2025. Red asked Nano to not work with Spite in January 2023 and told me about it afterwards. I lied about not knowing he spoke to her about Spite in my apology to avoid talking about it.
Bro, this is so bad. Like, come on, man. That alone is enough to get people to not want to watch you. Where does the rest of this come in? I'm only 43 minutes in, brother. You're telling me this is supposed to get better? Oh, wait, this gets better.
Red initially dissuaded Nano from accepting a model from Geary in November 2023. I guilt-tripped Nano in November 2023 and February 2025, but still sided with her. Red reassured Nano about her considering and canceling Bao's model in August 2024. I knew Bao's model was canceled in August 2024 and didn't try
Sorry
to
if I
do
keep coughing into
anything
the mic, John.
about it. Red and I agreed to talk with Nano about exclusivity, including not to work with Silvervale specifically on any more models in January 2025. Red and Nano agreed to a deal for her not to work with Silver, Bao, or Cotton in January 2025, only telling me about Silvervale's inclusion. Red spoke to Nano about Chilili in April 2025 after seeing Nano work on a model for her and never told me about this conversation. We asked our video editor about exclusivity after Bao started working with them in September 2023. Red convinced himself Bao gate kept her video editor to hurt our future music video projects in December 2024, then held a grudge and list of grievances against her.
Let me hear the grievances. Let me hear them. I want to hear them.
I didn't speak to Bao.
Hold on, let me go back to this one real fast because I really wanted to talk about this one. Red convinced himself that Bao Gate kept her video editor in the future. So he just did... Yeah, he is... Like I said, this is where it's on you. And you should have known... I don't know if I want to say you should have known this. But if he was just working himself and he just screwed you over in this section right here where you said... Red convinced himself Bao was gatekeeping a video editor to hurt future music video projects in December 2024, then held a grudge and list of grievances against her, and you were not aware of that, and you still took him back? That is interesting, especially if you're keeping him as head of your management and all that. Like, that's a pretty big thing to keep from you, is it not? Do you not agree? Do you not... Is it now that you guys don't really have any friends, it's okay? Because it's like, who is he really going to screw over now? There's nobody left? Like, I don't understand. I really don't. I just don't get it.
Then held a grudge and list of grievances against her.
Sure.
I didn't speak to Bao to clear things up about what I knew Red held against her, and it led to me being an awful friend to her for months at the start of 2025.
Please make any of this worth me reading. You're just agreeing to everything.
Both Red and I mismanaged the planning and communication with Numi about her concert at the start of February 2025. I pulled out of performing in her show and almost didn't go after choosing business over my friend. We both grew to dislike Silverveil over the past few years for various reasons, including harassment and comparisons, my own insecurities, and how Silverveil acted towards me. Red asked an artist not to work with Silverveil in March 2025 and never told me about it. Red and I assumed Spite was copying me in 2022 and early 2023. I overreacted to Niantail's Hellhound OC design in 2021. She'd then say every claim of wrongdoing that was made against Red or I that isn't listed above is not true, whether it was an assumption or...
Honestly, it doesn't matter. That everything that's listed right here, that's enough. That is quite literally enough. That's right there. You're like... They already gave you 25 to life. Now they're giving you life. And you're saying, oh, anything after this, you can't give me an additional 100 years in prison. You're already away for life. You've already, like, the jury already sentenced you to that's your new home right there. Sure, okay, you don't get an extra 1,500 years. Cool. Like, come on.
Lie in someone's document, statement about me, or verbally on stream. I would list the false accusations here, but there's been such a ridiculous amount at this point that I don't even know where to start. I will let this document speak for itself.
Sure.
These actions were not over years like the public was told. The majority of these actions happened in an 8-month span from August 2024 to April 2025. How each person was affected, if they were affected at all, is explained throughout this document. Nothing was black and white, and none of these actions were motivated by jealousy, envy, greed, or being malicious for the sake of it.
Is it just for the
subsection was called My Friends. It's been falsely claimed that I was using, manipulating, sabotaging, betraying, and backstabbing all my friends for years in an effort to deplatform them and ruin their careers.
But like this part right here, that part that my big head's covering, what do you mean falsely? We just got... What?
There was never some kind of years-long grand conspiracy of deceit against them.
I will give you that. Apparently, it wasn't over years, it was over months. I honestly... I wasn't kicking you in the nuts over 5 years. I just did it every day for 5 days. Okay, that's still, like, I'm not gonna let that slide still.
Anyone, and I have never pushed the ladder down behind me. I have never been jealous or envious of any of my friends, or anyone else. My friends were not stepping stones I used to further myself. I loved my friends. Our experiences together were real. Our memories together are real. It hurts that I even need to say that here. There are plenty of things my friends know I've done for them, helped them with, or included them in for no other reason than that they were my friends. I've always answered their questions and offered them advice when they asked, done my best to be there and support them at their debuts, with their own endeavors, and I've personally bought so much of their merch for myself without ever saying so. I literally brought brownies my mom made across the country to share with them. I spent my own time making one-of-a-kind cosplay pieces of their VTubers for them for no other reason than that they were my friends. More than the 3 finished pieces below were planned for more of my friends, including Bao, before I put all of my crafting focus into my Nihilister cosplay. It meant a lot to me that I could make things that meant a lot to them. And here we can see different examples of different cosplays that she made for her friends. She'd then say, I don't know what they think I did against them other than what I listed above, or where these ideas came from, or what rumors they were hearing about me, or how my friends collectively...
Why does she keep downplaying what she did? I'm so confused, man. Is it me? Is it just that I expect is it just that I have a different sense of loyalty than Cinder? I don't understand.
Agreed this must have been the case after everything we've done and shared with each other.
Sure.
I absolutely could have been a much better friend, but I just can't believe every single one of them thought this little of me at a moment's notice. There were about a dozen of my friends involved before Nano's document was...
Cinder. Cinder last name. Cinder Hellhound. I'm using your full government name. All this back here is way, way more than enough for anyone to think lower of you. None of this stuff back here shows you in a good light. Just because you admitted to it doesn't make you a better person because you did this stuff willingly. Okay? And it's a lot of stuff back here that is really, really bad. It's not something I could let slide. Okay? I want you to understand that. Cool. Let's go ahead.
Posted, and still not one of them said anything to me before they were posted publicly. So one thing I'll say is that months leading up to the drama, some of her closest friends were starting to have doubts that Cinder even cared about them over business. You'll see that in Numi's section, and you'll also see that in Bao's section. To Cinder, they turned against her at a moment's notice, but to them, this has been brewing in their minds for months. They were hoping it wasn't true, but when they saw the DMs between Red and Nano, everything exploded. Anyway, Cinder would continue, a lot of my friendships did suffer due to where my priorities have been, especially over the course of 2024. Because of my focus being overwhelmingly on work and less on my personal relationships outside of it, I neglected people I cared about, and so did Red, both online and IRL, even my closest friends. Unless it was about work, I didn't put as much energy into just talking and hanging out, but that's not to say I never did, never wanted to.
I do want to say that, unfortunately, the reality of streaming is that this is going to happen, so this is something that I do. I am very, very comfortable with letting slide, is her saying that her friendship suffered due to all her priorities being on her work. Unfortunately, the reality is when you're working a 9 to 5, once you leave that job, it will no longer be something you think about, right? If you're not a manager, if you're just someone working, even if you're just you're not a manager, by the time you leave that job, you are no longer talking about it and you're no longer thinking about it, and you could just kind of ignore it. The unfortunate reality of streaming and being a content creator is that it never turns off, especially if you're someone working from home. No, it doesn't even matter where you are. It just never stops. You're constantly thinking of what to do, what next to do, uploading, editing, tweeting, interacting with your community, looking for the next game to play. This is something that I think is totally fine. If your friendship suffered because of that, it's unfortunately part of the game.
Or dislike them for any reason. I had my things going on, and I know they had theirs. When I wasn't streaming or working on something, I'd be isolating or hanging out with Red to decompress, and I didn't have the energy to socialize. I tried to plan collabs with friends as often as I could, and it was a way to hang out while still appeasing my content brain. My collabs with my friends were made into YouTube videos, but to say that I was using them for that, as if countless other VTubers don't do the same thing, is crazy.
No, definitely not. Like that, I completely understand, because I don't see my friends that I've known for a long time. Sometimes I would be on stream and I could see my boys who don't stream, right? Back when I was streaming, when I was doing nothing but streaming, going to work and sleeping, I couldn't do anything else. I'd see my boys and I would be like, man, I want to end stream, but I just started. I'd be an hour in and it's like, I can't. I have to keep going. I'm playing a story today, and I like to do an entire story when I sit down to play them. Unfortunately, it's just reality.
When I was traveling to see my friends, all I wanted to do was hang out and spend as much time together as I could, and it was the happiest I was. Red and I always loved, valued, looked out for, and appreciated our friends, even if we didn't show it as often as we should have. I'm sorry to those of my friends who I haven't given the time they gave to me. I'm sorry for those I haven't spoken to in a long time for no other reason than my own negligence. And I'm sorry to my friends that I only focused on work with and didn't spend enough time being your friend outside of it. So yeah, overall unfortunate, just for about everyone involved. The next subsection would be titled The Business Mindset. Red and I slowly became more closed off and neglectful of people over the past couple of years, but especially throughout 2024, focusing more and more of our time and energy on this career. Work became almost 24/7 for us, never taking a break.
Would the business mindset be the Mizkiv mindset or the Cinder mindset? It's kind of... I know the Cinder drama happened first, but I feel like Mizkiv has been streaming longer. I kind of want to call it the Cinder mindset just because it's kind of better. It sounds better. It rolls off the tongue better.
It was our job, our hobby, and almost all we talked about. We loved what we did, but we both became consumed by the content grind. Our work-life balance became non-existent. We were going and going and going all day, every day as a two-person team, working to an obsessive degree. We were always trying to do more, with more people, all the time. Everything became about doing bigger things, achieving more, accomplishing more, growing bigger, launching more cool things, having more opportunities, while keeping up with at least 4 to 5 streams a week. Our problem wasn't greed, like it was claimed. It was ambition that was wearing us too thin to keep up with everything, but it was never enough to take a step back and relax. We were always looking ahead, always had to be progressing. And
that you're saying one is only one is not exclusive to the it's not an A or B choice. You can have one and the other, right? They're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, it could be that too. Don't say it like it's not. Don't say that, yes, this is one thing, so that makes the other one impossible to be a choice. No, it definitely can be greedy.
Never stopped to appreciate where we were or the people around us. The money was nice, but it's never been the driving factor for anything we did. It was an indicator of a successful project, event, or merch drop that anyone understood. The majority of what I've made and spent went back into my work or towards the house my dad has been building. I've released a lot of merch, and it's something Red and I have both been passionate about. Coming up with and releasing cool new merch products is one of the most fun and fulfilling things to work on. And being on new products like a drink flavor or a trading card game was super exciting to us. It was always about launching cool things for my community over the money it made. I've turned down merchandise opportunities and many more sponsorship opportunities than I've ever accepted, only taking on those I really wanted or had a strong interest in, even though a lot of them were paying very well. Being a greedy, money-hungry person has been falsely projected onto me. It's never been all about the money for either of us. One instance I may be called out for regarding this was during my Heaven Hound model debut. During my lore video, I had an intermission where my chat needed to fill a gold bar on screen with bits to progress the video. It was the easiest way for me to implement interactivity into the debut, and my chat having direct involvement by cheering me on was important to the story being shown. The motivation wasn't to have people give me money for the sake of it. This mindset got myself and my career to where it was, but it took over our lives to an unhealthy degree, leading to the deterioration of our health and relationships with people. Being canceled.
When did that happen? I don't think anyone ever mentioned that or like said it in a negative way. It sounds like an interesting idea, though. I will say that. That's something I will never be like, oh yeah, you're being greedy. That sounds really cool.
Away from work gave us the time to address this problem in our personal lives. For example, I have my own dog now who's been keeping me busy. I've gotten back into cosplay after not working on my Nihilister build for months. I've been trying to lead a healthier lifestyle, and I've been going to the gym regularly, despite finding it difficult to be motivated.
I hope it doesn't mean that you're going to lose your... Never mind, go ahead.
Motivated about things since April.
I'm just saying that they look... Whatever.
I've been making changes so I don't fall back into the same unhealthy work mindset I was in. Alright, so it's never been about the money. Cinder has turned down many sponsorships before, more than she's ever accepted. She only did it because it looked cool. That's a great mindset to have, but I can't claim that I watched Cinder to know how often she would accept sponsorships. All I can say is that she always had something to sell, like merch, products, etc. And her community loved it. And in the end, that's what matters the most, to stick with your morals while also giving your community...
No one could really judge a streamer or anyone for them constantly releasing merch if their community is the one that... If their community loves it, right? I can't judge someone, like no outside force can judge that, because it's like, why would you appease someone who's not in your community, who doesn't want anything to do with you, for the people who do love you, right? That does, like, it doesn't matter at that point, right?
They want. Anyway, Cinder would continue in the next subsection titled Competition. In my apology, I said, I'm disgusted with myself for buying into the narrative that my friends were competition. I just learned about all this myself, and there could have been so many other friends affected by the narrative that things always had to be competitive. She'd say, Red always considered everyone our competition, including my friends. I understood and I agreed with his reasoning below. It didn't change anything between my friends and I didn't treat them any differently because of it. The only person I became directly competitive against was Silvervale, and that wasn't right of me. Red would then say, the content creation sphere is massive, and the VTuber sphere is a fraction of that with its own audience. So that already is an interesting sentence, because it's pretty much assuming that the content creation sphere is a pie. There are limited pieces, and unless you don't get yours, you'll never get it.
Which I also don't believe, because for Twitch, maybe, but that's just because that website has never really grown, right? And in fact, it probably will never grow again unless that we get like a brand new CEO or something. So that's always kind of fallen off. YouTube, on the other hand, has never halted growth. I feel like on YouTube, there is always a slice of pie for somebody, right? Some people want to say that the space is oversaturated, but you know what comes with also that oversaturation is a lot more viewers, right? But that's why I say that YouTube is kind of an unlimited space, because it's like you only have so much in the day to watch a stream. Videos are always going to be around, I feel like, right? But that's a whole other, that's content creation theory. We could probably discuss that in a different video.
Personally speaking, I've met content creators who speak this way, but I've also met the opposite. People who believe that there's a piece of the pie for everyone.
I think so.
Now, in my own objective experience, the latter was way more pleasant to talk to, and I could actually form a friendship with. Continue. Everyone is always doing something, launching something, playing something, and it's a constant race of relevancy. Whether you want to look at it that way or not, it's the nature of the industry. Part of the reason why we were always working on new things, releasing bigger things at a faster and faster rate was to stay competitive in the space. In a general sense, everyone was competition. Friends, other VTubers, other content creators, but at the same time that anyone and everyone could be considered competition, they were also collaborators, co-workers, and partners. The end goal was about staying relevant in people's minds and making sure our projects could succeed alongside anything going on at any given time, while also topping our own things we've done in the past. At no point was this view ever motivation or an excuse to hurt, take advantage of, or put down creators around us, especially friends. This is a business, it's a job. But keeping the business aspect of things in mind didn't affect the way I saw our friendships with people or the way I treated them. They were my friends too, and we both cared about them, supported them, and helped them out when they needed it. I've always had the backs of the people closest to us. The only people I've ever considered as direct competition in the negative sense were people either we had something against, or they had or did something against us, and were working with artists important to us.
So everybody. Am I dumb, chat? The only people I've considered as direct competition in the negative sense were people we either had something against, which you said that you did, and had something, or they had or did something against us, which I didn't know anyone else who really did. Someone, he's going to have to give an example for that. And we're working with an artist important to us. That's literally everybody. Am I dumb, chat? That's literally everybody.
By April 2025, this was only Silvervale from how she acted towards Cinder for years. Bow after what I thought she did to us and our other friends in December of 2024, but only until sometime after my deal with Nano in January 2025, and potentially soon to be Lily by the way she was treating Cinder and coincidentally getting a model from Nanoless at the same time. It was wrong of me to feel this way, especially towards Bow.
That's literally everyone, bro. Except Numi. Shout out to Numi, but like, bro, you're a dumbass. You guys are like, you just admitted to it and then just said that, no, this is not everybody, but here it is everybody, except for Numi. But like, come on, man. You guys are not this stupid. Or maybe you are. I don't know. This is a 5-month. I'm about to turn this shit off, bro. Come on.
And I am sorry. So yeah, there you have it. The final subsection in this section would be 3 personalized apologies to 3 different people. The first one would be Tricky. Yes, the one they mentioned earlier that they had abandoned at a hotel in Japan. I'll just
still never heard of this.
They went to Japan to explore the country with their friends. One of them was Tricky. Red and Cinder barely had time for themselves. So they woke up at around 8 or 9 a.m. They waited for an hour in their hotel room without hearing from Tricky and just left without her. They only ended up meeting up with her again at the end of the day. Cinder would say, Red and I are sorry to Tricky for leaving her behind and hurting her. We didn't think she'd be left completely alone with how many of us were together in Tokyo, but we still should have waited for her instead of going off on our own. She was one of our best friends and we're both so sorry. So I really genuinely don't know why this is here, but maybe someone talked about it publicly or something, and I don't remember this ever being out there at all. Just missed it. In any case, in comparison to everything else that's been alleged and actually done in this document, this is nothing. Anyway,
seriously, where the hell did this come from?
Is Cottontail VA. Cinder would say, I'm sorry to Cotton for the way I've avoided her and turned down collabs together for a situation that had nothing to do with me. I thought I was being a good friend to someone I was close with, but it was unfair to her to treat her that way. I did not agree with how Red included her name in his deal with Nano, and I wouldn't have let him if I knew about it, regardless of how I felt about her at the time. Red would say it was wrong of me to ask Nano not to work with Cotton. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, and after hearing about the situation she was involved in, I took it upon myself to do what I thought was right by another friend. Cotton's always been nice to me personally, and she didn't deserve that. I'm sorry.
Dude, Cotton is the sweetest. I've met her twice. I met her... You know what's really funny? I actually met her in between all this happening. I met her once at Anime Expo, which Anime Expo was, I think, the week before this happened. And then I met her at TwitchCon this past week, like a week or two ago. And I was just like, and bro, she's so sweet. She's very loving and very warming and very inviting. And I didn't know. Okay. I'm just going to be honest. I wanted to make her laugh. And it just came to me to just say, so, Cotton. And she's like, yeah. Or I was talking to Cotton. I was like, yeah. Yeah, I was like, so yeah, Cotton, yeah, that reminds me. And she's like, I think she said like, yes, honey, or something. She uses pet names a lot. And I was just like, so, man, meeting you, everything after TwitchCon, huh? Or everything that happened after, huh? I met you at TwitchCon. No, I met you at Anime Expo. And now we're here. Anyways, everything worked out, right? And she laughed and she's like, yeah, everything worked out. So I'm glad she laughed at that because I was like, oh boy, this is a risky joke.
So yeah, Cotton's name is going to come up again in this document, obviously, but for the most part, Red and Cinder were really apologetic. The last apology would be to Nixiu, an artist. Cinder would say Nixiu deleted her tweet with her document about me. She shouldn't have, because she was right. I was going to include it here for reference, but I've left it out because of what she wrote in it. So instead, I've summarized the situation below. So the reasoning as to why she left out the document was because Nixiu in the document itself would say, I don't want any public reaction to this. I really do not want to appear on videos or similar. I don't want my case being used as an excuse to put more hate into it, etc., etc. Which is why I personally didn't include her document in my video about the situation 5 months ago.
Sure.
So let's continue. Nixiu, or Iomea AF, is an artist that reached out to me via email about making artwork in exchange for showing it off and giving a shout out to her Patreon on stream. I hadn't seen the email, but she made a tweet laying out her terms tagging me in it. I messaged her that I was interested. I put her in contact with Red and he handled things from there. Through Red, we made our agreement. It wasn't until she had a large portion of the sketch finished when I had changed my mind about our agreement and didn't want to do it anymore. I don't know what was going through my head or what my reason was for this, but I told Red to call it off. Red tried to make it seem like there was miscommunication somewhere to save face for me, but it was really because I was being unprofessional. He talked to me and I agreed to follow through with the art showcase and shout out on my stream. However, I failed to follow Nixiu's terms as they were agreed upon. I didn't verbally shout out her Patreon and only showed the link to it that was on her artwork. I also didn't show the censored NSFW version of the art, but that was because I was worried about getting in trouble with Twitch. This was an unprecedented situation I caused with an artist, and I've never done something like this with anyone else. I handled an agreement I made extremely and regrettably unprofessionally. This was way out of character for me, and I'm sorry to Nixiu for how I handled things and for the stress I caused her. I encourage anyone reading this to please support her and her incredible work. And that brings us to the end of this section.
That's interesting.
We're not even 1% through this document and already many bombshells and interesting.
That's like, again, okay, the Nixiu, I do kind of understand that. Where did the tricky part come in? I'm so lost. I think we're going to start with Bow and Isolation. I think we're going to get through that, and then we're going to stop. Luckily, I'm so glad that Mujin has this tagged, because then I have a way to plan this out. So we're going to get through the Bow section, and then we're going to pause it right there. So let's get into it.
Information. The next section after this would be over 200 pages and it would be about Nano. However, we're going to be having a bit of a change of plans. All right, so here's the deal. As I mentioned, there's 13 different sections in this document, and we just went through the first 3. In the first section, Cinder would say you're intended to read each section and in the order they're presented. And as much as I'd love to follow her instructions, after having read the whole thing, I can tell you right now that going right into the 4th section titled Nanolist would be a bit counterintuitive. Instead, I'm choosing to head straight into Bow's section, which is the 5th section. Why? Well, there's multiple reasons for this. One could argue that the most important sections in this entire document are Silverveil section, Nanolist section, and Bow section.
They took out
However,
the TVs
in
and
Nanolist section,
so
you're mostly seeing things from Red's perspective, with Cinder chiming in every now and then. When it comes to Silverveil section, it's mostly Cinder talking about her perspective, with Red.
Wait, say that one more time? I'm so sorry.
Nanolist section, you're mostly seeing things from Red's perspective, with Cinder chiming in every now and then. When it comes to Silverveil section, it's mostly Cinder talking about her perspective, with Red chiming in every now and then. When it comes to Bow's section, not only is it significantly shorter than both Silverveil's and Nanolist's, but there are many repetitions. There are many things in Bow's document that will repeat in those other 2 sections. Additionally, you get to see this from the perspective of both Red and Cinder, with both of them having differing perspectives and even...
Also, man, this whole back and forth is kind of obnoxious, but I guess it is supposed to make it more... Can I be completely honest with you guys? I don't give a fuck about what Red says. I really don't. I guess it does kind of matter because they're a team, but I'd rather just hear Cinder's entire story from it.
Logic. Finally, when it comes to Bow, her reputation precedes her. Before this controversy, most people didn't really know much about Nano other than the fact that she's a very talented artist.
Right.
When it came to Silverveil, yes, she's been here for a long time, but for the most part, she keeps to herself. She doesn't really collaborate that much and is a fairly private person. When it comes to Bow, though, not only has she been here since the beginning of the VTubing boom in the West, but she is quite literally friends with everyone. Yes, she has her own friend group, but she's someone who interacts with large and very small creators. Like, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. She has interacted with hundreds of people throughout the years and has never had a problem. She has never been involved in petty drama. She's never had a Google Doc.
It's really funny. When was this released? Hold on, let me check. Give me 1 second. When was this released again? damn, by the time he recorded this and released it, she just got into a big drama right now. That's pretty wild. And it's like kind of huge, I'm not gonna lie.
About her, which is, I mean, saying a lot in the space where petty drama happens every minute. All this to say that I believe that this might be one of, if not the most important section in this entire document.
Sure.
It gives you a broad understanding about Cinder's logic and perspective, Red's logic and perspective, and does a lot to explain how we got here. Most people might have read the first 3 sections before giving up on the 4th one, seeing that Nanolist is 186 pages, and unfortunately miss out on this section that's extremely important. So that's why I chose to go with this immediately. So, without further ado, let's see how Cinder chooses to introduce us to this section. Here's what she had to say. Bao has always been a great friend to me, and I couldn't own up to being a terrible friend to her when I wrote my apology. I've neglected Bao, the same as a lot of other friends of mine, but more than the others in my closest circle. There was so much I couldn't explain in my apology about what happened between Red and I over Bao that's all presented below. Because of Red's resentment towards her after he thought she went out of her way to sabotage us at the end of last year, she became a sore topic between us. My partner's opinion of my friend pressured me to treat her differently to avoid any conflict between us. I never tried to talk to Bao about it because I didn't agree with Red to begin with, and I didn't want to start any drama between us. I was ignorant to the way she felt isolated from me and our other friends earlier this year. She was hurting, and I didn't do anything about it. I'm sorry to her for never addressing the problem when I could have, and I'm sorry I made her feel unwanted. I knew Bao had a model planned with Nano. She showed it to me at WeebCon in March of last year. I also knew that the model was canceled in August before she told me and our friends. I was told that Nano chose to cancel Bao's model so she could focus on her own content. I had no reason to ask to read Red's messages myself when this happened, and when Bao messaged me and our friends, I felt so bad that I already knew about it. I saw how excited she was about this model, but I didn't do anything to try and help her. I was under the impression this was what Nano wanted, and I've always been on Nano's side about what she chose to work on. As far as I was aware, Bao didn't have any plans with Nano for a model again after that. I didn't know it was ever replanned or that Red brought Bao up to Nano in their exclusivity deal in January. I did not and do not agree with what he said about Bao to her then.
Man, it almost feels like she's just flip-flopping on everything, right? In one section she knows, another section she's just the blind doe in the forest, and Red is the one doing everything. It's just so... It feels like she uses the blind doe narrative in places where it would suit her, right? Again, this would be something that Bao would have to... As far as I remember, I don't think Bao really replied to this, so I don't know. I think honestly, everyone who was mentioned in this, I think they just moved on. So it's hard to say who has really said anything about it. I just don't remember Bao saying anything about it.
Bao was recovering from surgery when she was told one of her closest friends betrayed her. I don't know what she was shown or told by Nano and Shy Lily or our other friends involved when she made her decision to make everything public, but I believe she was misinformed.
Sure.
I wish she would have talked to me first, but I don't hold that against her. I never talked to her when I knew Red had a problem with her and I was neglecting her, so I didn't deserve that courtesy back. Bao was encouraged to reveal my relationship with Red in her document, but she didn't. I appreciate her choosing not to say anything about it before I did. Bao was one of the first people who genuinely inspired me to become a VTuber in 2020. I was lucky enough to become her friend and get to know her. She works extremely hard on everything she does, especially her music. With how much bullshit she's been through, she is one of the strongest people I've ever met. Bao's the kind of person who'll always have her friends' backs. I'm sorry that I didn't do the same for her and for never being the friend she deserved me to be. Red would also chime in and say, I'm sorry to Bao. I completely misjudged her character.
I don't want to hear it. I don't. I don't want you. Oh my God, it's so obnoxious that he's taken back by Cinder and he now forcibly upon us has a way into our space, into our subsection of the internet. I don't want you here, bro, in like any way, shape, or form. I really don't. But of course, because she's with Cinder, we're stuck with this prick.
The conclusions and made a mistake that not only hurt her with Nano, but continued to hurt her because of my influence on Cinder's actions towards her for months afterwards. I'm ashamed of the way I felt about someone who's only been a supportive friend to us. I was too immature to look past my personal resentment towards her to talk to her about the things that made me feel that way in the first place. I went out of my way to get even with someone and take an opportunity away from them who had only hurt us in my own headcanon. He continues, I also want to apologize to Bao for reassuring Nano it was okay to cancel her model last August. I was only considering Nano's feelings and how it would affect us, and not Bao. I am sorry. Cinder would then
leave. I'm so serious. If you're serious, I don't care what Cinder says. If you're serious about being very apologetic and wanting to keep everything and make everything right, leave. Don't have any interaction with this space. Don't be involved in it in any way. Don't be a manager, a paper boy, a fucking... Don't even get pens. Sorry, I'm gonna choke them on the spit there. Don't even get pens if Cinder asks while she's on stream. Like, have no contact with us in any way. And then I'll be like, all right, cool, you're forgiven.
Speak again and say, below we've laid out anything Red or I have experienced with or related to Bao that are relevant to everything that's happened. This includes conversations with our mutual video editor, Red's conversations with Nano about Bao's model, our real life experiences, and the production of Boss Rush's music video with Sakamore, leading up to what Red told Nano and their exclusivity deal. All right, so for an intro, this is already very loaded. If we take Cinder's word for everything here, she makes herself out to be a victim. Someone who was forced almost to be a bad friend to Bao because of her partner's opinion of her.
Like I'm telling you, bro, she's got like that babe in the woods kind of thing.
This, of course, ends up making Red look even worse than he already was. Yeah. And I think it's safe to assume that if someone were to write this experience on like Reddit, seeking some sort of advice, the top comments would probably say, leave him immediately or something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Cinder doesn't just fully blame Red, she also blames herself for being a bad friend. This won't be the only time she blames herself for that. In fact, if anything, I don't think she was a good friend to anyone in this document. And this is...
Again, like I'm telling you, past the intro, I don't know why we even had any explanations. You literally agreed to everything agreed and admitted to everything that we had thought about you. And yet that was only the intro. I don't understand.
According to her own words. Seeing that Bao is well beloved by the entire VTubing community, I mean, it's very hard to find someone who dislikes her and has a valid reason for it. Cinder, instead of attacking her like she does most people in this document, would instead make the case that Bao was simply confused, that, hell, she was manipulated. Red then chimed in and, again, confirmed the fact that, yes, this was mostly his fault. He made up a headcanon in his mind and convinced himself that Bao was an enemy and tried repeatedly to sabotage her, even doing his best to sabotage her friendship with his wife. What comes next is something that would happen on the 30th of September 2023. Red would ask Cinder's video editor about working with them exclusively. This would happen 2 weeks after they saw that this editor had worked with Bao on something else. Cinder would admit that she took this personally when she shouldn't have, saying that she thought that it must have been because her content wasn't good enough, or as good as Bao, or maybe that she wasn't paying the editor enough. She does take the time to specify, though, that she was upset, but not specifically.
The first time Red asked our video editor about working with us exclusively for a couple of weeks, after we saw that we hired for Bao, I initially took them working with Bao personally when I shouldn't have. I don't even know how that happens. Why would you take that in any offense in any way, shape, or form? I thought it might have been because my content wasn't good enough or as good as Bao in this case. Maybe they're friends. Maybe they're just closer. Maybe Bao was the first one, first come, first serve. How did you miss every other kind of reasoning and you immediately went for, this is something against me and it's something because I'm not good enough? I don't understand. I don't get it, brother. I don't.
At Bao because she was her friend. Red, on the other hand, wanted this editor to do more for them in general, so he wanted to ask about them becoming exclusive for that reason. He'd go ahead and ask how much they'd be wanting to be paid to be exclusive, and the editor turned him down. Cinder claims that both her and Red were satisfied with their response and accepted their decision, and she managed to get over her insecurity and was happy that this editor was supporting her friend. She then claims that this was the only time she has ever perceived Bao as competition, but it didn't affect how she treated her. This was all a larger version of what she had included in her initial apology back in April 2025. In the next page, we can see the DMs between Redacted and the editor, and if you're interested in reading them, you can pause the video. After this, more than a month would pass by, and that would be when Red would discover that Nano was going to work on Bao's model. In the DMs, Red would be asking Nano, hey, do you have a lot of models lined up? Nano would say, quite a few. Does it have to do with the project? Red would say no, it's not for the project, he was just wondering, because he knows that she's working on a model with blank and silver, and one of his contacts at Mythic Talent, his agency, said you would be working with one of their clients soon. So we can see here that Red always made an effort to see who Nano was working with. This is something that you'll see multiple times, not just in Bao's section, but in other sections too, and by this point, Nano was used to it. She would just show him her entire list of clients that was upcoming, and Red would reply with, oof. Red would add a comment in the document saying my oof reaction in the screenshot was due to the number of projects she had on her to-do list, not about who was on it. This was the first time I had seen Nano would be working with Bao on a model. In the next set of DMs, Red would be asking questions about Bao's design to find out if it would be compatible with Boss Rush's theme. This would be a group song project that Cinder would produce later on, right? At this point, it was just an idea, according to Red. This was probably because they were thinking of including her in it. The last DMs of this conversation on the 17th of November 2023 would be Nano rethinking her waitlist. Red would respond with, hey, if you want to clear up your schedule for more work with us, I'm not going to stop you. But would then say, I don't know for sure right now, but I think you maybe should keep Bao, big maybe. And that's all I'll say. To which Nano would reply with, oh yeah, really want to work with Bao. Redacted would say, are you designing Bao's model? To which Nanolist would say, not sure, didn't get into specifics yet since it's planned for June 2024. Red would say in the document, I thought Nano should keep Bao on her list because she was Cinder's friend, but I didn't want to take a solid stance on it if Nano was thinking about removing her herself. Nano said here she really wanted to work with Bao. A couple days later, Nano would DM Red, asking, by the way, since you got plans, aka projects that they want to work with Nano, do you think it would be best for me to have Bao's model done sooner or around June is okay? Red would say, I really don't know at the moment. Then he would detail all the stuff they're working on with Cinder, and Nano would say, maybe having it done sooner so whatever happens later, I'll be open for it. In the document, Red would say, Nano asked me when she should have Bao's model done. Nowhere do I say she should cancel it. Nano suggested she may get it done sooner than June. A few months would pass by, and all of a sudden, we're at WeebCon 2024, more specifically, at the end of March. This is when Bao would show the model that Nano was working on to both Red and Cinder, showing a lot of excitement. Another few months would pass by, and in July 2024, Bao would message Red about doing a cover of She-Wolf with her for her Halloween cover album. Cinder would specify that this was the first and only time she went to Red specifically in their DMs to plan something with her. She would first tell Red that this song would be a duet. In the DMs, Red would say she's streaming, but I'll ask her. Some miscommunication would start to take place. 8 hours later, Bao would say, do you mind asking Cinder if she's down sometime soon? If not, let me know so I can let Numi know. It'll just be us two. Red would say, I think she's down. She said you could have just messaged her, but then would ask, is the song just you and her, or is Numi doing it too? 3 days later, Bao would message Cinder to add her into the project server for the song, and Cinder would express confusion, saying, wait, I thought it was just the two of us. Maybe Red didn't tell me everything. Bao would say, bruh, it's you, me, and Numi. I told Red that if you didn't want to join, then it'll just be me and Numi instead. Now look, throughout these 1,000 pages, sometimes you'll have Cinder or Red talk about an event like this without adding more context and just moving on to the next event. I'm here to tell you though that this will be important later on. For now though, I can definitely see how confusing it must be to have just this simple misunderstanding between friends be aired out like this. Things like this could definitely discourage someone from continuing to read. But don't worry, because now things truly do get spicy. Shortly after this, literally just a few days after being added to the project server, the first DMs between Red and Nano leading up to Bao's model cancellation would begin. More specifically on the 23rd of July 2024, when Red would ask Nano if she knew when Bao's model was going to debut so that they could plan their schedule around it. As you might remember, it was meant to be done by June of that year, and they saw the early design in March when Bao showed them at WeebCon. When Red would ask when Bao is meant to debut her model, Nano would reply she planned for Valentine's, so February 2025. This was more of a 6 months delay on the initial release date.
Right.
Around that time, Nano would open up a commission form where people could apply to have her work on a project if she found it interesting enough. A couple days later, Nano would message Red saying, I might not take any comms from that form. I feel like I want to be more into VTubing. Even though she got a few cool ones, she wants to move on with her own brand, but specifying that she will work with Cinder until she gets dumped. Red would encourage her to do this and would offer to help since he's the brains behind Cinder. For example, Nano would say, what would make a small community get people's eyes? And Red would say, like, you mean what it takes for a small VTuber to get lots of eyes on them? That's kind of my specialty. I did that. Later in this conversation, after talking for a while about her...
What else are you saying? I guess there's nothing interesting.
That's kind of my specialty. I did that. Later in this conversation, after talking for a while about her brand and what she wishes to do in VTubing, Nano would say, honestly, I would cancel my next models if I didn't feel already so committed to them. This is when Red would start to inquire more about what she's currently working on and how many models she's worked on that haven't debuted yet. Nano would say there's like 4 models. One of them is meant to debut around October. Red would specifically ask, is that Bao 2? To which Nano would say, didn't start Bao yet. Red would talk about this in the document, saying, I asked about Bao being one of the finished models that hadn't debuted yet because I was under the impression Bao was already done. Nano told me her model wasn't even started. Me saying to her, we'll find a new mama for being busy was a joke, like earlier in the conversation when I joked about firing her. Now look, this was a fairly long conversation that would stretch into the 26th of July, but that would be when Nano would ask Red, do you think Bao would kill me if I cancel with her? To which he'd reply, no, but she'd guilt trip you 100%. But if that's best for you, then I think you should. Nano would admit, I'm very guiltyable, to which Redacted would say, I mean, the sooner you don't have model work, you can work on your own debut and stream stuff. And Cinder and I can help you out. So I'm not telling you to cancel her model, but it sounds like that'd be best for what you want to do.
Okay,
Nano says,
sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Red says, is Bao the last of the 3 you still have to do? To which Nano replies with, yep, got blank 2, which I'm considering canceling too. In the document, Red would describe this as, out of nowhere, Nano asked me, do you think Bao would kill me if I cancel with her? She was already considering canceling it on her own.
Right.
This was a huge difference from how she felt about Bao's model last November, linking the message in which Nano said, oh yeah, I really want to work with Bao. Red would continue his explanation, saying that he told Nano to do what was best for her, and that he and Cinder would gladly help with her streaming. He'd then add, from his own experience with Bao, he thought she could be whiny and pushy when things didn't go her way, so he thought she'd complain and guilt trip Nano. His logic was that he was being honest with his friend about another friend, but that he never asked her to cancel Bao's model or any other model. His argument would be that this wasn't targeted towards Bao. He would have done this no matter who the model belonged to, and that at the end of the day, he was closer to Nano than he was to Bao, so he was supporting her and wanted to do everything he could to help. According to him, this context was never shown in Nano or Bao's documents that came out in April 2025.
Right.
Around a week later, Red would DM Nano and ask her if she decided to cancel any model projects like they had already talked about. Nano would say she hadn't canceled anything yet, and then saying, actually, give me another moment. 6 hours later, Red would reply to that message saying, did you check on this yet? To which Nano would say, they're replying right now, just give me another moment. 20 minutes later would be when Red would send the infamous message, did you cancel models? To which Nano would reply with, I did not, with a crying emoji. Red would explain that it was in all caps because of the previous messages sent and the fact that he still hadn't heard anything from her about it. She said she didn't, and he said Nano arc delayed to 2026 in regards to what she wanted to do, right? Becoming a VTuber and stuff, joking with her like he always had. This is when Nano would say, I'm scared to cancel with Bao. And unlike the other conversations we've seen so far where Red would be taking more of a back seat, letting Nano do her thing, here he would encourage her to do this, saying, you shouldn't be. She has so many connections, she'll find someone super fast. Did you already design the outfit? I remember her showing it to us at WeebCon. Nano would say, yes, I can give her the design for free as an apology gift. And Red would say, don't sell yourself short. I think she'd be fine with taking the design and finding someone else. I wouldn't offer it for free, maybe half price, if she starts shit. Lol. Now look, the drama was 5 months ago, but if you remember it slightly, you'd remember that this was one of the main messages in Bao's document. This made Red look really, really bad because it didn't just sound like he was telling Nano to cancel Bao's model. He was also talking shit about her. He was also kind of making it harder for her, right? Her model was already being canceled. Nano wanted to make it up to her, and Red was still insisting, no, don't even give it for free. Give it for half price if she starts shit. From Red's perspective, this is what he would write in the document. He'd say, I was not the one to bring up Bao again. I didn't specify anyone we had previously talked about. I reassured Nano about it.
What was it? Nano brought up Bao again, saying that she's scared to cancel with her. She didn't say to choose any cancel her projects. She didn't want to cancel with Bao anymore. Yeah, that she was here to do, which explains why she hadn't canceled anything yet. Okay.
And told her I thought she should at least be somewhat paid for the design she made and the work she put into it. My thought that Bao could possibly start shit over this was the same as I said before, where I thought she'd complain or guilt trip Nano over it. All of the lead up to this conversation was left out of Nano's and Bao's documents. And yeah, to be fair to Red, that was the case. The full context, the previous conversations were not included. In the grand scheme of things though, does that truly make a difference? Well, I'll let you, the viewer, decide.
Not really. The thing about it is that maybe this makes Nanolith look worse, right? Or makes Nanolith looks bad. This makes Nanolith look like that she cherry-picked her decisions and Nanolith cherry-picked the screenshots that she showed everybody and the explanation that went along with it. However, this doesn't really change my perception of Red because he already admitted to everything earlier, right? Like, man, you're not getting away with everything else because you weren't guilty of one thing. Like I said, you're not getting, you know what I'm saying? You're not getting thrown in jail for life, but you're not getting away with it either. Or you're not getting away with what you already have either, right? Like, I'm sorry, bro. I don't know, man. It's interesting. Sorry, I had to take a break there for a second. I wanted to see how Nanolith had reacted to this, but it seems like she's just going on the same as usual.
Because we still have a lot to go through.
Right.
45 minutes after what we just saw, Nano would say that she would be able to start on Cinder's angel model right away. Earlier in the DMs, she had mentioned that she could only start on it maybe in October, but at this point we were still in August 2024, to which Red was very excited about. 2 minutes later, Red would message Cinder saying Nano's able to start the angel model right after the summer fixes and dances, to which Cinder would say, yay. From Cinder's perspective, Red would tell her that the reason why Nano cancelled Bao's model was because she wanted to focus on her own VTubing career. He'd also specify that he and Cinder were going to help her out in that career. Cinder would say that she felt bad for Bao because she saw how excited she was when she showed them her concept back at WeebCon. But at the same time, she was under the impression that this was what Nano wanted. She was her friend too, and she wasn't going to pressure her to do something she didn't want to do. She didn't see Red's messages and only knew what he told her. Red would also chime in and say if I really wanted Nano to cancel Bao's model for some malicious reason and knew I could make her do it through some kind of manipulation, why would I have waited 8 months after I first found out about it in November of 2023 and told Nano she shouldn't? Why did I wait 4 months after WeebCon in March 2024 when Bao showed it to us? Why, when I thought Bao's model was already finished in June, like she told me it was planned for, would I have gone out of my way to make Nano cancel it now? Although I was closer with Nano, Bao was still a friend and I didn't have any problems with her back then. My opinion of how she could respond to Nano canceling on her doesn't change that. Nano has worked with multiple friends of ours in the past and it wasn't a problem, including Bao in this situation. I was supporting what Nano expressed to me she wanted to do for herself, and as her friend I reassured her it would be okay. The next day, Red would message Nano and ask her—
no, bring that back. This wasn't for Nano to have more time for us instead of anything she had planned. The only projects we had upcoming with Nano at the time was Cinder's angel model and starting screen art, which we were content with being started in October, like Nano told me before. It was only after all of this that Nano told me she could start it earlier, which affected our project timeline. This is why I asked if she decided to cancel anything, but I didn't expect to move on just move the project up. Sure. Man, the only thing about this is that it really, again, the thing about it is, like, if I'm giving her, or if I'm believing, obviously I could believe you, right? That shows their whole doc. You have all the screenshots to prove what you said. However, if we don't know everything that's ever happened in your life, how are we supposed to know that none of this was ever discussed? Right? Like, you guys are together again. You guys have every means of coordinating this without people ever knowing, because you guys could be in the same room at the same time. I could also have my doubts that Cinder didn't know about this, right?
Wasn't a problem.
Or whatever it was said back here. We see.
Red would also something she didn't want to do. She didn't see Red's messages and only knew—
How do I know she didn't see the messages or that Red didn't talk to her about it in any way? I basically have to believe your word. And if I can see that an analyst was able to, show stuff that was incorrectly shown and that she was leaving a lot out of the screenshots, how do we know you're not leaving out stuff that you were able to discuss IRL? That's all I'm asking.
What he told her. Red would also chime in and say if I really wanted Nano to cancel Bao's model for some malicious reason and knew I could make her do
That's
it,
just something that I'm thinking of.
Nano, she shouldn't. I thought cancel the past and itself and how her conversation with Bao went. Okay. The next day, Red would message Nano and ask her how her conversation with Bao went. He'd argue that the reason why he was asking about this was because Nano had expressed she was scared to talk to Bao. So being her friend, he wanted to ask how it went. In the document, he'd say, if Bao's design was done and the model wasn't even started, like Nano told me it wasn't, then I didn't think it was a problem if Bao could just take the design to another model artist. Hypothetically, I thought there still would have been time to hit her planned Valentine's Day debut window Nano told me about. In the DMs, to reassure Nano, he'd say, she won't hate you forever, just for the next few days. But if she still has the design, I don't think it's a big deal. Nano would say, okay, it's sent. Red would reply with, I'm here for emotional support. To which Nano would reply with, thank you, it hurts my soul. Red would say, the whole situation was wrong of both of us. Nano shouldn't have asked me about what she wanted to do with her other commissions, and I shouldn't have weighed in on what I thought. I'm sorry to Bao for my actions and that this happened at all. Cinder would...
do I want to give him more? Do I want to put more weight on what he said? It's hard because if a friend asked me, like, I'm not thinking of conflict of interest, right? Even though, like, this is definitely a conflict of interest. And if he gets them to stop, that is going to benefit only them and it's going to screw over Bao. However, this is also a situation where a friend is asking you about your opinion. In which case you give your opinion and it just so happens that it might screw over Bao. Man, it's kind of weird. A lot of this is a lot to think about, I think.
I don't think it's a big deal. Nano would say, okay.
I feel like I probably would have given my opinion too, even though it would have been wrong of me. And he knows it's wrong of him, though. So that's the thing, right?
It's sent. Red would reply with, I'm here for emotional support. To which Nano would reply with, thank you, it hurts my soul. Red would say, the whole situation was wrong of both of us. Nano shouldn't have asked me about what she wanted to do with her other commissions, and I shouldn't have weighed in on what I thought. I'm sorry to Bao for my actions and that this happened at all. Cinder would continue and say, it was after this when Bao messaged our group chat with our friends saying that Nano dropped her as a client. I felt guilty knowing about this before Bao had told us. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I was the one who was known to always work with Nano, but if this was her decision, I didn't want to get involved. I should have been a better friend to Bao and at least tried doing something for her, but I didn't. Alright, so picture this. I think this is like a group of friends of like 6 people. Imagine revealing such sad news, right? Like Bao was completely heartbroken over this. Everyone would leave a supportive message except one person in the group, and that person happens to be the one who has worked with Nano the longest. Not a good look, right? Cinder would continue, after I posted my apology on the 27th of April 2025, as she was being cancelled, Bao tweeted this, talking about her model being cancelled last August. It was a standalone tweet, not as a reply to my apology, and not quoting it either. If you follow the drama, I'm sure you saw this tweet, and Cinder actually took a screenshot of it barely after it was posted, back when it was still at 7,000 views. It would be Bao saying, How can you say you didn't know? I showed you both my base model sketch from Nano at WeebCon. We walked on stage and performed together. You were in the group chat where I shared my sadness over Nano suddenly canceling my model after we were so close to begin Live 2D and...
Oh, I'm so dumb. I just realized right now what I've been saying this entire time. No, dumbass. No, Cinder happened earlier in the year. V Shoujo happened after Anime Expo. I'm so sorry about that, chat. I hope that didn't confuse anyone. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? It literally just led into a Cottontail story. Who really cares? It doesn't have anything to do with this. But I just realized that I forgot this happened first and then V Shoujo happened. How did I forget that, dude? What a long year, chat. I'm not gonna lie.
Rigging, and to now find out that just a day before her sadness, Nano and Red will be talking about it as if it was a funny name, by the way. That gutted her. She'd say, if you want to apologize to me, please do it properly and stop hiding behind Red. In the document, Cinder would say, I was aware that in this instance, Bao's model was cancelled, and before she said anything, I haven't claimed otherwise anywhere, and I didn't say anything about it in my apology. I was not aware of Red giving Bao's name to Nano in his exclusivity negotiations in January 2025. This is what she would say in her apology that she wrote back in April. After Bao had posted this tweet, she messaged one friend that could get a message to her since she had already unfriended her and she had no way of contacting her. She'd say, Red and I had a falling out the night the documents dropped, and we didn't live together anymore either, so I had no way to access his DMs myself to go back and see everything he was saying and doing to make sure it was right. All I had to go off of was what Red told me in August about this, what was posted in Nano and Bao's documents, and now Bao's tweet after my apology. I don't know if she ever got this message, and she never reached out to talk. I told this friend that I didn't know the model was canceled because of Red's conversation with Nano, and not that I didn't know it was canceled at all. This message would be sent on the same day. Cinder would say, I just saw Bao's tweet, I have no way of contacting her, so if you could please have her reached out for us to talk, it would mean a lot. I didn't know her model was canceled due to Red's conversation with Nano. I know it's hard to believe I wasn't informed on every conversation he was having, but he had a lot of control over comms without constant approval because I trusted him. We don't live together for me to make sure everything he was doing was right. I'm so sorry to you and all the girls. The friend would say that
I find it hard to believe unless you just said you lived together up until this point. Unless you guys are like isolated from each other, it's hard to, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to believe that you never talked about this and never brought it up anywhere. Okay.
They were going to ask her. In fact, the same friend would message Cinder asking if she was okay, and Cinder would say, I'm sorry, blank, I'm trying to collect myself. Red and I aren't speaking right now, and I'm so upset with everything. Cinder would then go ahead and refute some aspects of Bao's tweet. She said, we were so close to begin live 2D and rigging, and Nano would say in her document that Red asked her to cancel Bao's model mid-progress. Cinder would argue that that's false. Nano hadn't started yet, and she said that in DMs in July of 2024, when it should have been done by June 2024. Additionally, Bao's document would say there was suddenly back and forth on whether or not Nano had the physical and mental capacity to continue her model. Cinder would say this lines up with what Nano told to Red, and how Nano repeatedly overbooked herself but was never shown anywhere. She would also remind us that Red didn't message Nano specifically to see if she canceled Bao, but to see if she canceled any other models. So as you can see, Cinder definitely does disagree with some aspects of what Nano and Bao had said, including some of the most fundamental aspects. It seemed although Cinder realized that what she did and what Red did was wrong, she still wasn't as wrong as Nano and Bao had claimed. In any case, a few days later, on the 9th of August 2024, one of Cinder's editors would decide to step down. This would prompt Red to ask their other video editor yet a second time to become exclusive. Red would offer the remaining video editor a raise in order for him to do more work for them. In other words, becoming exclusive. Cinder would specify this had nothing to do with Nano. So I guess that section was just to clear things up. If you read the DMs, which I already have, the editor would end up declining this offer. Now, what comes next is a fairly important date. It will be the 27th of August 2024, and it will be the last time Bao and Cinder would ever solo collab on stream, which means just the two of them. In the beginning of that month, Bao had asked Cinder to make clay animals together. Materials would take a while to arrive, and they'd be able to finally do it on the 27th. 4 days later, Bao would release her original song, Natural Disaster, featuring one of Cinder and Red's friends alongside her. Red would then comment on this, saying, this event is here because of what I watched Bao say on her stream, either
Wait, who was that? One of their friends? Oh. Tricky, I'm guessing, because I feel like Vienna is closer to Bao than Cinder, and then Yuzu. So it's either Yuzu or Tricky. Why would they leave that out? That's so weird.
On the day the song was released or sometime in the couple of weeks before then. She was talking about how difficult, frustrating, and time-consuming it was to work with inexperienced singers on music projects, and that she would rather work with V-singers from now.
Damn. Tell me about it, brother. Tell me about it. Oh, unless he's not. Oh, dumb. What if he's the producer? Oh, I'm stupid. Yeah, true.
Consuming it was to work with inexperienced singers on music projects.
Yeah, true. Sorry, go ahead.
And that she would rather work with V-singers from now on who know what they're doing and can match her high skill level.
No. Who cares?
These were her closest friends she was talking about, live on stream. I couldn't find an archived VOD of the stream anywhere to prove this happened either. What I remember is how it made me think Bao viewed her friends and how I felt about it. Cinder would then say, at this time, Bao, Numi, and I were working on our She-Wolf cover. Red told me this and it made me anxious about the song, and I felt like I had a lot of pressure on me to do well. I barely had any singing experience and wasn't anywhere near Bao's level, but she asked me to be a part of this.
I mean, I get it, right? Especially as someone who's made music before, especially the reason, especially by myself, right? Most of my music, when I was making music, I made it all by myself. Because I know I have an audio engineering degree, so I can record, mix, and master it all by myself. I have been in a group when I was younger, and then I worked with friends and then recorded other people. So I can get the frustration of like producing a song with people who are not experienced, being in front of a mic and, doing takes and different takes and dubbing and this and that and hoping that every take is usable, because you kind of have to be a perfectionist when it comes to singing. You have to be a perfectionist to the point where you get the song how you want it, but also not too much a perfectionist to where it never comes out, right?
And I wanted to do my best for her. All right, so this is truly the turning point.
Should get back into music.
This is where the voices inside Red's head would tell him that Bao is an evil person. As early as the end of August.
Why, bro? You're telling me in all this time you've never met someone who's made music? This is so normal, bro. This is just regular music production.
2024. Now, I
don't want to say it's not all, happy sunshine and rainbows, but not to say that he's saying that, but like it's work, brother. It's hard work.
Disappointing that we have so many archived VODs uploaded to Google Drive and linked to YouTube with timestamps and transcriptions, and yet this one particular VOD where Red's opinion changed of Bao couldn't be found? Yes, but whatever. We can just assume he's saying the truth. This does, however,
I don't assume that. I don't assume that at all. I really don't. And in fact, like, if this is the part where he really changes his mind about Bao, that's really stupid. I don't know. This is the fishy part. This is not making sense. This part doesn't make sense, especially without having the VOD. I wouldn't hold this against Bao, but I am holding this against Red if this is the reason why he turned on on Bao, I should say.
Us that he would actively watch Cinder's friend's streams and would come to her whenever something concerning like this would happen. I mean, Cinder admitted it herself. Red telling her this made her anxious about the song when she wasn't. Cinder felt like she had a lot of pressure on her shoulders and wanted to do her best for Bao. But guys, let's take a step back here. Bao is a friend of hers. This was something she could have DM'd her directly and asked about, but she didn't.
Yeah, you're not some random no-name rapper who just got invited on a song with Eminem where you have to bring your A game, right? This is your friend we're talking about here. Some of my friends couldn't rap, or like they couldn't, their recording wasn't up to par. That's fine. I'm not going to hold that against them, especially if they're my friends. I'm going to still try my best in helping them. This is pissing me off because it's like, are you their friend? This shows me a lot of how much, I'm not going to lie, if I just read this part, this would really show me that they didn't see him as friends. And this would also show me the competition and the mindset that they had. This part right here, because like it really speaks to me as someone whose life like revolves around music, right?
So far, we can somewhat conclude that Cinder is someone who's insecure. And so far, from what we've seen, Red seems to be someone that, instead of reassuring her,
who's got
fed these insecurities huge amounts of food. In any case, on the 19th of September, 2024, TwitchCon 2024 would take place. Red would say, there's 3 things that happened at TwitchCon last year that further formed the opinion I had of Bao.
Okay, sure.
Let's go through them, starting with number 1. The first night there, Cinder, her friends, and I went out to dinner somewhere nice. Bao was supposed to be there with us, but never showed up. It was the first chance the close friends had to see each other in months in person away from work, and she blew them off. Everyone present was talking about her not being there. Second point. One of our friends was telling us that they were working.
You didn't ask? No one decided to get a question in, a call, anything. No one decided to hit her up. That was it. They never showed up and you just let it go. Okay.
Working on a song with Bao, and Bao asked about them having a music video to go with it. The song this friend was making with Cinder at the time was planned to have a music video, but they weren't planning on having one for the song with Bao. They said that Bao got upset with them, guilt-tripping them over their decision about their own content. This reinforces what I had told Nano about Bao. And the third and final point, the last night before everyone went home, the friends were planning to go to dinner. I ended up getting sick and stayed behind. In the group chat, while they were figuring out where to eat, Bao said that she wanted to go somewhere fancy or she wasn't going. This was the last night everyone was together, but there were still caveats. She had to just spend time with her friends, but there were still caveats. Wow, that's crazy, man. Is that even a sentence? Anyway, yeah, she had caveats about having to spend time with her friends. Sure. Neither Cinder or I have access to this group chat anymore. Now look, I said I would stay objective in this video. I really did. But objectively speaking, this is diabolical. Just reading these 3 points, I can feel how much he's judging Bao for her actions, and yet we don't even have the full context.
You're like... Sorry. Sorry. I've been trying to cough away from the mic this entire time. You're giving us all of this on trust me, bro. And I don't trust you, bro. I need you to know that. I want you to understand. None of this is this isn't proving anything to me. Other than that you're insecure and you're making it everyone else's problem. Like, that's what it's really showing me, brother. I'm not siding with you after this.
Bao wasn't there on the first night. There's something called traveling. There's something called jet lag. Hell, maybe Bao had a very strong period. Maybe she's one of those girls that has such a strong period that for the first 2 days, she's practically handicapped. In any case...
Okay, this is kind of weird to say, but yeah, she does have something really bad medically. I'm pretty sure. I think she explained it during this whole situation. I'm sorry to bring that up, Bao, if that is something very private, because no, actually, you told all of us about it. They're pretty crippling, yes.
Bao was Cinder's friend before being Red's friend, right? And he was making some incredible assumptions here.
Yeah.
The second point had a friend of theirs being guilt-tripped by Bao. Look, when it comes to making a song together and making a music video, it's actually a ridiculously arduous process that takes a long time. And we honestly just don't have enough context to make up any conclusions. So if we don't have enough context, then how did Red have enough context to pin the blame fully on Bao here? I don't know. Maybe he already hated her and just needed a justification. And finally, the third point is like the first point.
Bro, you're not... We're almost an hour and a half. And you are not showing me anything other than there's only one thing that I have changed my mind on, and that is Nanolis did not give full context for what happened. Other than that, you are not showing me anything, and I have not changed my mind on anything. In fact, I am more convinced that you guys are cherry picking and flip-flopping and titty dancing with where you're showing this and where you're showing that, and when Cinder would know things and when Cinder doesn't know things, and things that wouldn't really make sense unless you guys just never talk about anything, and yet you guys always talk about everything. And it's like, you're not winning me over right now. I'm still, like, you got 1 point. You got 5 years off your sentence. You still got 150 to go.
Except here, Red was sick and couldn't show up. He was also assuming things about Bao over text. Maybe she and multiple friends had already talked about going somewhere fancy and they were changing their minds, so she didn't want to go. Look, if any of you watching have been in a group of friends at any point in time, I don't know, and you had a group chat in like WhatsApp or Telegram or Discord, you understand how hard it is to get multiple people to go out to the same restaurant.
I barely make it to dinners at TwitchCon. Usually I don't get invited to those. Usually my TwitchCon experience is I sit in my room. Like this year, this TwitchCon, I think my friends went out to dinner. Since I wasn't really in those group chats, I sat in my hotel room watching Scarface and eating like food I got from Walmart. It was kind of sad. It was a really cool hotel though.
Red was making a very big deal out of this, and what's funny here is that he was sick. He wasn't even going himself.
Yeah.
Does that mean Bao can write her own document and say, Red didn't show up on the last night before leaving TwitchCon? He's a terrible friend. So yeah, look, maybe Red included this because he felt like he was being honest, but it just ends up making him look way worse because these aren't valid reasons to want to sabotage your wife's friend. In any case, during TwitchCon, both Red and Cinder would get to meet Sacramore, Bao's video editor, more specifically, the man behind her music videos. He would come to Cinder and say he'd love to work together and make a music video, which is why Red would eventually ask him to make one for Boss Rush. Sacramore, of course, made his own Google document as this was happening back on April 26, 2025, and I go over that in detail in my first video about the drama. Cinder would then say that Red reached out to Sacramore after TwitchCon about a music video project, which was the one for Boss Rush's song. They discussed it over the next week, but Sac couldn't fit it into his schedule at the time. So they would chat a bit right over the course of a few days at the end of September leading up to October 4th. Red would ask Sac if he can make a music video for the end of October 2024, to which Sac would say, I really would love to be able to squeeze y'all in and absolutely would if I could, but I genuinely don't have any days free until the 9th of November at the earliest. Red would reply with, okay, thanks though, Sac. You're missing out on a good one. Okay, look, I just want to point out real quick the fact that Red multiple times has stated that Bao will guilt trip you if you don't want to work with her or want to cancel with her or etc. I don't know how you would classify this.
Is he more mad at Bao because Bao is better business oriented, or because he kind of has because she kind of has similar methods and he doesn't see the irony in that? Is that what it is? I don't know. I just thought of that after this. It's like, you are doing what she said and you dislike her for it. I don't know, chat.
The sentence, you're missing out on a good one. But it does kind of sound guilt trippy, right? Like, listen, man, my schedule's full. I'm really sorry. I'd love to make this work. Okay, but you're missing out on a really good one.
Yeah, my schedule's full. Hold my nuts.
It's like, okay, buddy. All right. And speaking of Red, he would end up hating Bao even more due to the trip to Japan. Oh my God.
Can you be a fucking adult? Like, can you? I'm genuinely asking.
Beginning to mid-October 2024. He'd say there's two things that happened during our trip to Japan with our friends last year.
Okay, sure.
The first one being, Bao got mad at another one of our friends for something that happened at a restaurant with a rude owner. She got pissed and yelled at and belittled our friend when they did nothing wrong. They confided in Cinder and I afterwards and were very upset over it. But it was fine because they said that's just how Bao is. Okay, so if Red said that he was present when this happened, it would be way different.
Where there's so much he said, she said, brother.
Different than him saying that he simply got confided in. In other words, he only got one side of the story and he didn't get Bao's side. But
did you ask Bao? Or are you just convinced this is how she is, so this is how it... Yeah, I got it. That's what happened. It's true.
Fights like this happen between friends.
Sure.
We're not told if they apologize to each other, if they made up later. No, none of that. Just listen, this changed my mind about Bao, period. The second and final point here is everyone got together for what we called our Canadian Thanksgiving dinner, since it was a few days earlier. It was the last night all of our friends would be together, just like TwitchCon. And again, Bao never showed up. She said she was on her way, and then sometime later said never mind, she's not coming. We all were aware this was the last time we'd all see each other until 2025.
Did anyone ask why? Can anyone else confirm this? No one is really calling out Bao for any of this stuff, but I have to take your word for it that this is happening and this is how it went down. I'm sorry, brother, but you're not. It's not good enough for me. It's really not.
Again, we don't know what happened. We don't know if an emergency occurred. We don't know if she specified it later. The only thing here that bothered Red is that she couldn't show up, but we're not given any more context. Red would then say, after TwitchCon in Japan, I was pretty convinced about how I thought Bao viewed and valued her friends outside of making content together.
But again, did you ask her? Did you show any message? You didn't even show any messages. You should have asked her. Why do we have to believe you on this is how it is? The problem with believing with what you're saying is that this is your reaccounting of everything that's happened. I can't trust you. I can't trust you on your word alone. Sure, you proved the Nanolis thing. Yeah, okay, whatever. But everything else you haven't proved. This is the only... You can't show me DMs. You can't give me a recollection of what she said personally. You're not doing good, brother. You're struggling. I'm not throwing you a life raft. you're out here drowning, and I just gotta watch because it's like you're doing this to yourself.
Would then add, I experienced these things in Japan and at TwitchCon too. I was put off by them in the moment, but I didn't think about them beyond when they happened. So see, both of Cinder and Red's perspectives are very different here, and they operate on a completely different set of rules and logic. What didn't bother Cinder ended up bothering Red immensely. And while this wasn't a problem yet, it would then become a problem so big that it would start affecting the way they lived together. We'll of course see more of that later, but for now, they got back from Japan, and Red would message Sakurmore again about Boss Rush's music video since the planned release date was pushed back again. This time? Cinder would include every single DM they sent to each other over the course of the music video's production. I guess they would do that for transparency's sakes. It is such a waste of time to go through every single message because mostly it's technicalities. It's like, hey, this song has a lot of typography. I can send you more details about the artwork, blah, blah, blah. I mean, really, this is very technical here. If you're interested in making a music video, maybe you'd find this interesting. But one of the more notable things that would happen is that Red would offer to pay double for Sakumore's work if he could finish it under a very tight deadline. Sakumore would agree, and he'd get right down to work. In total, there would be 12 pages of DMs, and again, most of it would be technical. In the end, what matters the most is that the music video ended up amazing. In the end, what mattered the most is that the music video turned out amazing. Red would pay the full amount immediately as soon as it was done, and he'd tell Sak, we'll have another project for you soon. Okay, not that soon, but still, thank you again for your work on this one, to which Sak would say, all good, looking forward to it. Now look, I know we're going through a lot of details, so a little reminder. Sakurmore was Bao's music video editor, okay? That's what he was known for. Because of his work for Bao, Red and Cinder wanted to work with him, and they just did, making a banger music video that featured Cinder and a couple of other friends. And even though this was Bao's editor being used for the video, and even though she wasn't featured in that video, she would still leave a comment showing her support when it would be finally uploaded, saying, goddamn, they ate, those are my girls, holy. Now, check out what Cinder has to say about this. My new music group Boss Rush premiered our first song at the end of November. Red and I were going through the comments and we both saw Bao's. He didn't want me to like hers, so I gave in just to satisfy him. At the end of the day, it was just a comment. Now, to me, this is probably the most fascinating paragraph in this entire
Wow. As the past few months, I had pretty solid opinion on how I thought about it. So I thought another like listen to me. It was pretty petty of me. I don't know, bro. You're both dumb.
93-page section. The reason for that being is you feel very bad for Cinder in the first 3 sentences. It's like, what do you mean you wanted to like your friend's supportive comment and your partner forced you not to? You start to feel that maybe Cinder's trapped, that she wasn't able to express herself fully because of this deranged partner who had it out for Bao. But then she decides to add this sentence, saying, at the end of the day, it was just a comment. Almost as if she was completely undermining this.
Dude, on that alone, all their arguments of not knowing and not agreeing and some of this stuff of this, some of this stuff of that, it kind of falls apart because it's like you're playing the part of being super whatever about it, right? Of being super, what's the word? Like you're being super, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Super unknowing and being not a participant in the whole situation. And then we get to this, and it doesn't look good. That's how I'm going to say it. It makes you guys, it's just like, it's like that big moment in the movie where someone drops a hint that reveals everyone's intention through the whole movie or something like that. It's like, yeah, from that, like that, what's that movie called? The Doctor Strange one. And Wanda says America's name, but he never told her. So she's like, you never told me her name, did you? Nope. That's what it feels like. Your mask slipped just slightly. Your mask didn't slip a lot, but just slight enough. It moved just slightly enough, and it exposed a very distinct feature about you.
Supportive comment, as if she was just throwing it to the side in the trash, as if it never mattered to begin with, that this shouldn't even be a big deal. Okay, but look at this from Bao's perspective. She had her model canceled with Nano. Every one of her friends supported her. Cinder said nothing. She leaves a comment on Cinder's video. It got over 4,000 upvotes. It's one of the top comments. There's no way you can miss it. Cinder would like every other friend's comment except Bao. I mean, if you're Bao by this point, what would you think? Like, as if you're being singled out, right? It's not a pleasant feeling. I also want to take the opportunity to remind you that when Bao worked with an editor that had worked with Cinder before, she took it personally. Was Bao also taking this personally? Up to you to decide. Red would add, after the past few months, I had a pretty solid opinion of how I thought Bao viewed her friends. So I told Cinder she shouldn't like it. I was persistent about it, so she listened to me. It was very petty of me towards a friend showing support. But when it came to Red's rivalry with Bao, this was only the beginning. Barely a week later, Bao would start a group chat with both Red and Cinder. They don't have screenshots of it now because they were removed from the group. In any case, the reason why she had created this group was because Bao wanted to collab with Cinder. And from Cinder's perspective, Red was adamant to her about not wanting to plan anything with Bao at this time, so they didn't. Red would add, Bao's never messaged us like this before, and this was right after Boss Rush popped off with another 2 friends involved. I wasn't opposed to doing things with her completely, but the timing was suspicious to me after the past few experiences with her, and I saw this as her trying to gain something from us. So I brushed her off, and what stood out to me is that she addressed Cinder specifically as the lead singer of Boss Rush.
I wish I was this delusional. I feel like my life would be more exciting. I'm finding problems where there are none. Maybe I could be a writer. That would be kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you're so delusional. It's insane. And if you're delusional by yourself, that's cool. But now like it's affecting other people. And that's not cool.
So look, when Red tells Nano, we're gonna fire you as a joke, it's just a joke. But when Bao addresses Cinder as the lead singer of Boss Rush, it's concerning. It's a problem. Interesting logic all around. And speaking of Boss Rush, it was so successful that Red, 11 days after it had released, would message Sakurmore about working on another project for February 2025. This is when Sakurmore...
Oh, he's trying to keep it for himself. That's what that is. He's like, oh my God. He never wants Scaramouche to work with anybody else, and that's Red's fault. And Cinder knows everything about it, and she was also complicit in all that. That's you. That's what you look like, by the way.
Moore would announce that he was only going to work with Bao exclusively going forward. In Cinder's initial April 2025 apology, she said, and yes, I was also upset when Sak, the Boss Rush music video editor, had told us that he won't be working on any future projects with us and would instead be working exclusively for Bao. But Red got it in his head that it was Bao's fault that it happened, and seemingly held a grudge against her for it. In the DMs that were included, Red would say, hey, you want to do a music video for February? And Sak would say, hey, sorry, but after January 2nd, I'm closing down all comms and working completely in-house for Bao. Red would be confused, saying, I thought you wanted to do more. And Sakurmore would say, yeah, I really want to. It's very hard for me to say no, but I have to prioritize other things in my life. And this path would help me achieve the things I want to do in my personal life as well as professionally. In the document, Red would say, the last time I spoke to Sakurmore, he said he was honored to be a part of Boss Rush's project and was looking forward to the next music video together. Everyone loved the video he made and it was already nearing 500,000 views. I didn't know Sakurmore well at all, so I had no real basis to know how he actually felt, but I just couldn't understand his decision coming out of nowhere.
Oh my God, you're so fucking stupid. What are you, bro? Legitimately. Are you autistic? Do you not know how to interact with people? I gotta ask, bro. Normally I would be a little bit more calm in this. Do you not know how people... Oh my God, bro. I am flabbergasted, chat. I am appalled. I am smeckled-orbed at how fucking stupid you are. And mind you, all this, if you hadn't had it in your head of how Bao acted towards his friends, you wouldn't even think this way. If you weren't as delusional, making things up in your head, you wouldn't think this way. If you didn't jump to the conclusions that didn't understand, and if you said, oh, I don't understand this decision, like you're with, like this isn't Cinder, bro. You're not with this guy 24/7. You don't have to understand his decision. You understand what I'm saying? Oh my God, bro. Were they surrounded? No, because they had each other. You were kind of surrounded by yes men. It's called your wife. You're really bad at this. I hope you know that. You might know how to, maybe, like she said that he helped early on. Sure, you might know tech. You might know how to grow a brand, but you don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to interact and have a normal relationship with people, and it feels like it. I'm going to be honest.
Now, I really want to take the time to point out one message that Red had sent Sakamore in these DMs. After Sakamore had laid out his logic, saying that he needs to take a different path in life to achieve his personal life goals, Red would reply with, alright, well, I let Cinder know she's pretty upset and disappointed, but it is what it is, I guess. Again, I just feel forced to point out the irony here, how guilt-trippy this sounds, how unprofessional this is, was when Red, when talking to Nano and talking in this document, would mention how guilt-trippy Bao was. I mean, if this isn't guilt-trippy, then what is? The next day, on December 11th, 2024, Red would continue the conversation, inquiring as to the exact reasoning of why Sakamore didn't want to work with them again. He was messaging Cinder at the same time, and would ask him at some point, Cinder wanted to ask, is there any goals our projects can help you with? She's just confused about why it's so hard for you to turn down more projects when you enjoyed the last one and it did so well. Sakamore would...
Are you fucking stupid? He said why. Because he wants to, maybe he didn't, the way you could come to the conclusion that you did is if you knew everything about his life. You know why this is stupid and why this is a really dumb question for you to ask and you're really hung up on it? Is because you're not with this guy 24/7. You don't know his mindset. He probably didn't tell you, I really want a genuine... but I also do have other things in life that I want to prioritize and prioritize as the path I'm currently on to get me to my goals and to achieve as a content creator. This is his first time telling you this. Why did you forget this part? His goals and what he wants to prioritize and what he wants to achieve as a content creator. That answers this. The only way this doesn't answer this is if you're acting like he has to tell you everything or you know everything in his life and you don't. You see how that works out? What are you, a ball and chain? Is he locked up in your basement? You have to kick him out? I don't understand.
Again, specify. At some point, the only growth for him in freelance is to just start charging more money for projects. But he didn't really care that much about money. He wanted to build a community, saying that he was going in-house with Bao because she has been his day one and supported / took a chance on him when he was a literal nobody, living in basic poverty and wanted to do whatever he could to repay her kindness. So it was very straightforward. He wanted to be loyal and work for Bao because she was his day one, and in the meantime, focus on his own stuff, not letting some freelance gigs get in the way of that. Red would act even more confused, saying, I'm not sure what you mean by your personal content if you're just working with Bao. I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere since you seem pretty eager to work with Cinder at TwitchCon. And
because it's on his mind. He doesn't have to tell you guys everything.
Even after the last project, especially since it did numbers. But if that's how you feel, then we won't try to change your mind and respect your decision. Thanks again for your work. Good luck on your goals. Red would say in the document, by the end of our conversation, I was suspicious of his reasoning. Cinder would then say,
you're so stupid.
Right after this, Red messaged our video editor about music video editors and what happened with Sack. They're close with and works with Bao and her other editors, including Sack. Yeah, again, this is how you can confirm this wasn't written by AI. What the hell was this sentence? What Cinder meant to say is that Red messaged their video editor, telling them about what happened with Sakamore and asking if he knew any other music video editors. The video editor would say, I know he's been wanting to make his own videos for the past year, but got caught up with doing a lot of editing work, so I guess he's really wanting to focus on it moving forward. I mean, it was right there. It was the same exact thing that Sakamore had told Red.
It's in your face and you're deciding not to look at it. Also, chat, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go limp. my phone's about to die, and I don't have a charger working for it, so we're gonna have to go limp for the rest of the video. So I'm just gonna be like that unless I PNG it, but I think I'm taking up enough on the screen. But let's keep going.
And instead of taking it as fact, Red admits he didn't and still thought something else must have happened. I wish I can summarize this next page.
You don't want to know. Why don't you understand and accept the answers? Everyone is telling you the answer, and you're somehow just, no, this doesn't work for me, so you guys have to give me a different answer.
There's no way to summarize.
I hate this dude. I really do. I don't like
Red's logic without you having to really listen to every word he says.
Okay.
What really made him suspicious was when Sakurmore said he's going in-house with Bao because she has been his day one and supported him when he was a nobody. Red would say, it was this message from Sakurmore that made me suspicious of what his actual reason was for going exclusive with Bao. He only said all this after he was pushed about his decision, and this was only days after Cinder and I turned down Bao in that group chat where she called Cinder the lead singer of Boss Rush. Because of my experience with Bao over the past few months, I had confirmation bias. I convinced myself Sak was doing this because Bao must have guilt-tripped him and convinced him not to work with anyone other than her, including Boss Rush. And I was mad that this wasn't even just against Cinder and I, but Tricky and Vienna too, the two other singers of Boss Rush, who I cared about as much as Cinder did. He would then link an image of what confirmation bias means from a Google search. It's where people tend to favor information that confirms their existing.
Your entire life is confirmation bias.
Beliefs, regardless of whether it's true or not. So in other words, he's calling himself delusional. And then he would go on to say that one thing that wasn't mentioned yet is Bao's own relationship in regards to her music throughout last year in 2024. He'd say she would talk publicly in her Discord server about how depressed she was about her own songs, about how nothing she did performed well, guilt-tripping her fans about not liking them or listening to them, and ignoring their supportive messages like it meant nothing to her because the numbers didn't reflect them. He would then speculate about the only songs she actually found successful in 2024. They would be 3, and would then point out that they all had her friends in them. At some point, Red would tell Nano about Bao's weird behavior and would mention how the reason he thinks she got Sakurmore to be exclusive was because one of her songs flopped. Here's the message. This was initially included in Bao's document in April.
Bao had original songs last year that had MVs by her editor, and the songs flopped.
April of 2025. He would argue that the reason why
we were banned from Bao's Discord, so I didn't have any evidence to show this happening. I don't know if Bao's messages about these still exist, but I know there's plenty of Bubble Buddies that out there who would remember this. Bao's TMJ, she talked about in her document, had nothing to do with this. I said to Nano and wasn't something I even considered.
This was initially included in Bao's document in April of 2025. He would argue that the reason why he said that was because he thought it was a flop from Bao's point of view. He was referring to how she thought of them, implying that he thought this was motivation for her to do what he was telling Nano about, which was about the topic of Sakurmore. To back up his claims, he would argue that he would constantly see Bao complaining about her songs and view counts in her own Discord server, but couldn't provide evidence because he was banned out of her Discord server. He would then talk about another instance where Bao was playing Jackbox with friends, and how she would abruptly end her stream. When that happened, he would immediately jump to her Discord server to see what was happening, and would see Bao chatting in a public channel saying that her view count was too low to keep streaming and that no one cared about watching her. He'd said that she was very rude to them, especially her most supportive fans. But again, he has no evidence, he has no proof. He would say, I don't know if these messages...
I get like a throwaway account. You've never made a throwaway account. You say anything that you... Oh, God, am I in Bao's Discord? No, I think I'm in Vienna's, though. Like, you can't tell me that you never thought about making a throwaway account to look for this stuff, bro. I just have to take your word for it, and as far as I'm concerned, I didn't hear any Balbo buddies talk about it. Like, oh my God, bro, I can't even look for this stuff. I mean, I can join her Discord, but it's like, it's not my job to. I don't want to prove you right. Even though I doubt that it would prove you right, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm not helping you. What the hell? I just don't understand. I mean, here's the thing, right? I get the whole thing with the music. Sure, I get that. I personally get that because it's like you want your music to do good, and it's not going to do good. You know, I don't think music does particularly well because I feel like, I feel like the music wouldn't do particularly well because it just feels like a different kind of genre. and like maybe the algorithm won't push it. Who knows, right? It's hard. Like I get this stuff, right? And this all down this part right here, like I can't believe you without anyone confirming it. And it's been a while since this document was out and no one confirmed it, bro. I can't believe you.
Messages still exist, but this right here is a glimpse of Red's reasoning in regards to Bao. But Red would go even further, right? He found a tweet from Bao that was made on the 15th of March, 2025 that indirectly supports the above. Bao would say that she had learned a hard lesson about work-life balance. She'd vent and say the fear of falling behind and being forgotten outweighed all the joy and fulfillment she was supposed to feel as a content creator, never really feeling like she was getting anywhere, and if she did, it wasn't enough, and that she had to reevaluate how to be an actual human being again instead of a machine. She also, of course, spoke about some jaw pain she was experiencing in this tweet, and Red said that he hadn't even considered this when forming his opinion of her at the time. So Red says, with everything I had seen, heard, or experienced with and around Bao over the past few months all added up, I had come to this conclusion. Boss Rush's song came out and was performing great right away. Bao, who was upset with her own music's performance throughout the year and who really cared about numbers, saw how well the song her musically inexperienced friends made was doing. She also found out her video editor Sak had made the music video for it. These made her upset. She messaged Cinder and I about doing something together in the week that followed, calling Cinder the lead singer of Boss Rush, but we turned her down. She was also turned down about doing a music video with another friend recently who was guilt-tripped about it, and now us refusing to make contact with her made things worse. She must have spoken to Sakamore sometime after about how depressed she was over all of this, guilt-tripping him about everything she's done for him and to not working with anyone else going forward. When Sakamore told me why he made his decision to go exclusive, he emphasized how indebted he was to Bao, which would make sense if he was guilt-tripped into this. So over the course of this,
he said that she was his day one. What? You're like, all this can only come to light, or you can only come to this conclusion if you either like never ask her or you're just delusional. Right? Like, you can't come to this conclusion normally unless you're like a psychopath or something and you're like delusional like he is. No one would come to this conclusion normally.
This entire period, Red thought he was going crazy for being the only one to see all these different patterns of behavior, saying that he had thoroughly...
That's because you have a grudge against her. You have your own confirmation bias. That's why.
Brainwashed himself into thinking there was no way that this pattern he was seeing wasn't true, but admits that now he knows he was wrong. He misinterpreted the situation and misjudged Bao's intentions due to his confirmation bias, going as far as disregarding every positive interaction he had with Bao. What's even more embarrassing in all this is that,
again, this is just making it more... This works against you. Now I feel like I can't trust anything else you're saying for the rest of the document. You got one W, which was Nanalyst didn't give full context for why she did, which for her feeling manipulated. Sure, that is your one W. That is not excusing anything else. And in fact, you're looking worse and worse as the document goes on.
That Bao was fully aware of Sakamore working on the Boss Rush music video, admitting that while he went through his own messages with Sakamore for this document, he noticed that Sakamore had pointed out that he had already let Bao know about this. You can see it here. On the 28th of September, Sakamore said, "Thanks, we'll let you know ASAP if once I chat with Bober," aka Bao. Red would then apologize, saying, "I'm sorry to Sak for the pressure I put him under while working on our music video and overworking him during the holidays with what he was experiencing at the time. If I had things better planned and finished sooner, there wouldn't have been such a time crunch. I also want to apologize for the hostility in my messages to him when he told me he was closing his commissions. It was his choice to do so, so I shouldn't have disturbed him." But see, as I mentioned earlier, Red's obsession with Bao wouldn't just affect her. It would also affect his relationship with his wife, Cinder. On the 12th of December, 2024, Cinder would say, "Red came up with his theory about Bao and brought it to me. This was a verbal conversation, so I have no evidence of it, only of the events around it."
Okay.
She'd say, "I didn't believe Bao would pressure her editor just to hurt us, and didn't believe that Bao's past actions were as big as Red was making them out to be. She caved on not liking the to comment, understood what Red was saying, but completely disagreed with his conclusion. She was already stressed about multiple things coming up in her career, and now Red was telling her that he knew one of her friends had purposely done this to her. She'd claimed that she defiantly told him it wasn't true and to get over it. Red told her to ask Bao about it, but she told him to do that instead since he was the one with the problem. She had a collab on another French channel the next day that included Bao, and Red wanted her to cancel it last minute because she was involved after she had already made the announcement about it in her Discord server earlier. She didn't want to hear it, she got upset, and she went to sleep because of their fight. As proof, she would show us a tweet about her missing out on a very important announcement for a game she liked. She would then continue in the document saying neither her or Red ever spoke to Bao about this. She had opportunities to clear this up, but she didn't. She just wanted this to go away by itself and keep the peace between her and her friends. Red would add, regardless of how I personally felt about Bao now, I was still friendly with her the couple times I talked to her afterwards. She was still Cinder's friend. I asked Bao for advice about something work-related in December, and the last time I spoke to her was at the end of the year when her, Cinder, and their friends were dealing with something else going on. Getting even with Bao wasn't something I ever thought about doing until the opportunity to came up when going to Nano about exclusivity. A day later, Bao would message Cinder about their collab that had just happened and apologized for the fact that she was not really very energetic or active near the end of the stream, saying she spaced out at the end. Cinder took a whole day to reply because she was busy, and even though she had the opportunity to talk to her about the topic of how Red felt about her.
Man, oh man. Oh, let me hear this last part again. Oops, sorry.
Their collab that when going to Nano about exclusivity.
He's just so fake, bro. And Cinder is not any better for not wanting to talk to her friend about it. Because if she did, it would have just cleared everything up so easily. Like, you're fake. You're both fake. It's... I could kind of get why Cinder didn't want to do it, right? It's her husband who's super not cool with Bao, in which case he's fake. But we already know he's super fake. He's fake as fuck. We already know that. I don't have to tell you about it. You guys have been watching the video this entire time. Like, he's super fake. And it just... I can't imagine all this coming out, you guys writing this stuff together, and the first thing you do is you reinstate him as your manager, and you think that's a good idea, and none of this will happen in the future. Bro, let him be a house husband. He's done. He's good. Go to an agency. Go to Mythic. Do anything else but have him be a brand. He has the not the mentality. He probably has the skills to grow someone's channel from being small. He doesn't have the maturity or the mentality to deal with people. And I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't. Like, I'm so tired of this.
A day later, Bao would message Cinder about the
I just don't want to yell anymore.
And apologized for the fact that she was
let's go ahead.
Of how Red felt about her. She didn't. The next day, Artist 1, who Red tried to make exclusive for Cinder, would tell him that he was starting to work with Bao now. The editor would reassure Red, saying, "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere if that's a concern," to which Red said, "No, it's not that. It's just not the first time Bao's picked up one of our regular people we work with. I'm glad you're getting that bag." The artist would reply, "Talking about your editor, lol?" To which Red said, "Our editor is one, but not the only one. It's no big deal," replying with a dead emoji. Red would admit in the document that he was mad at Bao, but he wasn't planning to do anything about it. And that it was only when he went to ask Nano about exclusivity did he have the idea to include Bao's name as a way to get even with her. So in other words, he did end up doing something about it. On that same day, the 15th of December 2024, Sakamore would make an announcement, announcing that he was exclusively going to work with Bao from now on. For some reason, Cinder makes the point of saying this was the same day as my Heaven Hound model debut. I have no idea how they're related. Red would
Who cared? Oh my god. Whatever.
Then say, as far as I was aware,
I almost just want to let it play because I'm so tired of it, bro.
Sakamore was already basically exclusive to Bao to the same degree our video editor was to us, if not more so. For him to do a complete 180 in under 2 weeks from Boss Rush's release was unbelievable to me. He put his exclusivity with Bao in writing publicly and asked to be completely anonymous without being credited going forward with no reason other than he wanted to. I just couldn't believe there was more to it. I don't know if Sakamore ended up making any of his own content like he told me since this happened. Alright, I can confirm this since I do follow Sakamore on Twitter. He did. He ended up making quite a few cool edits regarding games he plays, and this is something he really didn't have the time to do beforehand. Red would then add, recently, Sack opened his commissions again and is apparently not working with Bao anymore. The very thing that sent me over the edge about Bao last December didn't seem to last. We can even see Bao congratulating him on opening commissions again, and Sack is seen saying, thank you for everything over the last 2 years. I will truly cherish all of the memories/content we've made together.
If the exclusivity didn't last and they ended up parting ways, maybe she just didn't have enough for him to work on, or whatever the case may be. Maybe she found a different editor for, I don't even know what he edited, if he edited music videos or if he edited her content and she just wanted to move on or something and just didn't have music coming out. That doesn't confirm anything that you guys were talking about at all. And you're such a little bitch for saying this. The very thing that sent me over the edge about Bao last December did. I guess it didn't seem to last at all. You're oh my god, bro. You're such a pussy. Like, even in this document where you're letting your bias show that you still haven't gotten rid of on Bao. I want you to know that. You probably will never watch this, but I want you to know that that's what this is, and that's what it's showing.
To last. We can even see Bao congratulating him on opening commissions again, and Sack is seen saying, thank you for everything over the last 2 years. I will truly cherish all of the memories/content we've made together. This was on September 24th, 2025. So Sakamore had essentially been exclusive to Bao for only 9 months. And if Red and Cinder had waited, they would have been able to work with him again very easily. This section would continue on to the year 2025, more specifically January. This is when the topic of exclusivity would come up again. It would start off with Artist 1 messaging Red and deciding, you know what, I could go exclusive, citing competitiveness in the field as their main reason. Red and Cinder would talk about this, and they would come up with the idea of asking Nano for some kind of exclusivity too. Nano had already suggested some sort.
Next time Red and I talked about this, he said we should ask Nano for some kind of exclusivity too. Nano has suggested exclusivity to him. I can't really. I wouldn't know unless he said how he brought it up to her. Because Nano did bring it up already. He has an in, right? But it almost sounds like, let's get back at Bao. Let's take Nanolist. Let's pick up Nanolist. That's weird, but because Nanolist brought it up already, I don't want to hold that against them.
Of exclusivity contract back in September 2024, and we'll see that in her own section, don't worry. But seeing that she had already breached the topic beforehand, Red and Cinder thought, you know what, let's actually offer it to her this time. Cinder says, Red and I had agreed we should ask Nano to not accept any more brand new model clients and not to make models or outfits for Silvervale anymore. Nano would have more time to work on my projects, and Silver wouldn't be able to get another model from Nano, and I wouldn't be compared to her if she chose to get a new one from someone else. Her artwork commissions and
okay, so you still had that in mind to screw over Silvervale. Or I should say, so you still had in mind to screw someone over. It just wasn't Bao, it was Silvervale. So sure, we have one part of Nanolist being pressured, not really lining up, but you still did this in a way to screw over Silvervale. Now you only get 2.5 years off your life sentence instead of 5.
Projects with her current model clients wouldn't be touched. On the 15th of January 2025, Nano and Red would make their exclusivity deal official. However, Cinder had no idea that it was going to take place that day. She'd only know about it after they'd agree. This is because Red would bring this up to Nano in their private DMs and not in the project server where Cinder, Red, and Nano were present in. Cinder would then specify in Nano's and Bao's documents this conversation was presented out of order and purposely left out information. So in these DMs, we can see Red bringing up the exclusivity deal with Nano just as he had discussed with Cinder. No more new clients, and not working with Silvervale anymore, who was already a past client. So here we can see the exact outline of what the deal is. Red says, well, I think the main things we're looking for are for you not to take any brand new model clients and to not make any new models or even outfits for Silvervale ever again. You'd still be able to work on models and outfits with all of your other existing.
It's so disgusting that he's saying Silvervale specifically.
Clients, and your artwork comms wouldn't be affected. This is when Red would say something that was extremely controversial with the arts community and honestly in the VTuber industry in general, which was, one of our concerns is that more nano babies means nano models don't have the same value anymore. This was the second time he'd bring this up. There was another instance that was even more explicit, right? But we'll eventually get to that. Then he'd say, and second is that there's a few people that we just would rather not be able to have a model from you. Nano would ask, may I know who these people are? And Redacted would say, Silver, Bao.
Again, I think that's fine if you want to have exclusivity and you don't want anyone else to have the same kind of models so yours go up in value. I think that's fine. Obviously, right? It's, how do I say this? Capitalism. I guess people always get ahead by making sure someone gets behind. So that's not really a bad thing. The only thing that's really terrible about this is that you're saying you don't want Nanolis to work with your friends specifically. Like, you're screwing over your friends in this instance. And Silver, because I don't want to consider Silvervale one of your friends.
And Cotton. So even though he had explicitly agreed with Cinder that it would just be about Silver, he also decided to add Bao and Cotton. Nano would start to panic, saying, I have Bao on my list. Red would say, it's okay, Nano, you don't need to make any changes. To which Nano would reply, are you sure? I'm not really down on working with people who Cinder doesn't want to. But then Red would specify, yeah, but wouldn't this be the second time you're canceling on her? Plus, none of this can leave our chat. In the document, Red would explain what's going on, saying, I chose to include Bao's name to get even with her for what I thought she did to us, and I threw Cotton's name in there for hurting a friend and because I knew she was on Nano's waitlist in the past. And so even though Cinder completely disagreed with how he felt about Bao, he would still make sure to tell her how we both felt. Right? When he would tell her, there's a few people that we just would rather not be able to have a model from you, he was making it seem like both him and Cinder didn't want Nano to work with Silver.
Even though you're saying it like this and you want it to be as you, how do I know she wouldn't have agreed to it?
Silvervale, Bao, and Cottontail. Red would admit, I took advantage of that and made it sound like Cinder agreed with my feelings about her when I knew it wasn't true. It was the only time I lied about anything to Nano, and it was wrong of me to do this. Everything I said in this conversation were my own thoughts. My hesitancy and Nano's reassurance were both left out of Nano and Bao's documents. Cinder would then mention that she was completely unaware of what was going on in this conversation, and the DMs would continue. Redacted would start spilling the entire tea to Nanolis, telling her about how Silver gets more priority and bias at gamer subs, how Bao has been getting on our nerves for a while, hijacking Sacramore from them, and how Cotton hurt one of their close friends real bad. Again, we have no details on that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that even means.
Oh yeah, I think Bao did this because her music video flopped, etc., right? And Red would mention in the document that the reason why this all sounded so harsh was because he was angry about it and he was venting to someone he trusted about something he genuinely believed happened. He thought that if Bao was going to gatekeep her editor, then he was going to try and gatekeep his artist. After seeing how much pain and anger her friend was going through, Nano would say, you know what, we can do a deal. I'll cancel my model with Bao, like forever. As Red would start to ask detailed questions, Nano would specify that they had to make a separate deal for new clients, separate from her proposed idea about canceling with Bao. According to Red, that deal is what she earlier said she'd want some kind of payment for. Instead of focusing on new model clients, I chose to focus on the people I listed to her and offered the deal above. She said she wanted some kind of payment agreement for new model exclusivity, which would be another deal, but I didn't refuse to pay her for it like it was claimed. The original proposition was only over models, but since I pivoted and new model clients were off the table and we were just talking about these three, I suggested that it include all work. I told her she wouldn't have to pay us the few thousand for her rigging back from her offer, and I'd guarantee her as many projects as she wanted. She worked with Silver occasionally, never with Cotton, and only with Bao on her model, so she wouldn't be missing out on income we wouldn't be ready to replace. In the DMs, Red would be specifying the deal. Okay, cool. We can pay blank for you, the rigger, and you don't have to discount it from the next payment. You don't work with Bao, Cotton, or Silver at all again, models or art. And then Nano would ask, is there any way to add a little bit more since Silver still asks for art every now and then? And then Red would say, well, hey, listen, when Silver asks for art, tell her no, and tell us about it so that we commission another art piece instead of her. Nano would say, okay, sounds fair, but can I also ask for a Demon Cinder figure? Red would say, I'll ask about it right now if you want one, and Nano would say, yay, deal. When Red would confirm confirmed that she was getting a demon figure of Cinder, this is when Nano said, "Then we have a deal," and Red would make a recap of the entire deal again. "No work at all with Bao, Cotton, Silver. We'll continue giving you more work. We'll pay for the rigger, and you're sent a free demon figure." Nano says, "Yes, yes." There was no official contract involved, and from Red's perspective, this was a negotiated deal. There was no manipulation of any sorts. He'd argue, why did I bother making a deal with her if I could have just manipulated her to do what I wanted for free? After this had happened, Cinder would say that from her point of view, she was told that Nano had agreed that she wouldn't work with Silvervale at all anymore.
This really, like I'm saying, this really does only, so far there's only 3 people this is painting in a bad light. And that is Cinder, Red a lot, and Nano. Because this is showing that Nano did agree to all the terms and stuff like that. So she is not innocent because of how she agreed, right? She wasn't pressured. She didn't say, "We're going to stop working with you." She kind of folded under zero pressure, to be honest.
But that Red never told her that Bao and Cotton were ever talked about or included in their agreement, or that Bao was having her second model canceled, even though her first one was already canceled back in 2024. The deal didn't include the part about Nano not taking any new model clients they had talked about before, but Cinder was completely fine with leaving it that way. This is why in her apology in April 2025, she said she had nothing to do with the exclusivity deal. She had no idea what the real terms were. So what Cinder did know is that Silver couldn't work with Nano anymore, right? That's it. That was the entire deal. They'd be paying for Nano's rigging on her model, and the whole thing was about Silver. And Cinder was completely fine with that, even though the deal didn't include anything about not taking on new clients. Red would say, "I didn't tell Cinder everything because I knew she disagreed with me about Bao and she'd get pissed." I was confident she wouldn't find out about it though, with how all the business discussions with Nano were through me. And even if she did later, then it would already be long done. Cinder wouldn't have told Bao about it after the fact either. I was stubborn and wanted to get back at the kind of person I thought Bao was, more than keeping Cinder's feelings in mind. I didn't mention Cotton's name to Cinder either, since I didn't know how she'd react, and I didn't want her to find out about Bao.
We still have no idea what Cotton did, by the way.
Only agreed to Silver, so that's all I told her. A lot happened on the 15th of January because on that same day, Red would also finalize the exclusivity deal with Artist 1, this time having an actual contract. The artist would ask, "Do you have a list of folks you compete directly with?" And Red would say, "I mean, from the list you sent, Bao and Silver for sure. The rest, no." In the document, he'd say, "Because Silver didn't like Cinder and I had something against Bao now, I considered Bao and Silvervale competition." He didn't bother bringing up Cotton's name though, since she never interacted with this artist. Artist 1 would send a very detailed contract, and in it there was a section specifically referring to Silver and Bao. Red, of course, didn't push for this to be changed, but this agreement never actually ended up happening due to other reasons that delayed them finalizing things. Red doesn't specify what they are. However, just as things finally seemed to be working for Red, barely a month later, Nano would cancel the exclusivity deal she made with him. Her reasoning was that she simply wanted to work with Silvervale again. Cinder would say that this conversation with Red wasn't included at all in Nano's
bitch.
Document, and that Nano faced no repercussions from either her or Red for going back on her word. Nano would message Red and say, "So it's about the exclusivity thing. I don't think I can do this to Silver because she's still a friend to me and it hurts me to do so. I don't really care about Bao and Cotton, so I was wondering if I could pay back the figure and the rigging."
Here's the thing, right? The thing about Nano is, sure, she went back on the whole thing and let it go, but I just can't get over the fact that she made it seem like they pressured her into something that she went back on her word on a month later, right? And I really want to like Nanoless. I do. I think her art is beautiful, and I think she's so insanely talented. But this does kind of change the way that I view her. Not that I think that I would ever get a model from her or anything, because those are insanely expensive, but it really does suck to see how Nanoless really was throughout this entire ordeal, right?
With our current comms. I'll understand if you think that's unfair from my side. Honestly, I thought I had the guts. Red would say, "We'll still send you the figure and you can just discount Kumori's cost from the model." I think that's the rigger's name, and it was censored throughout this whole document. Maybe they forgot to do it this time, but hey, cat's out of the bag, right? Red would highlight the sentence, I
think they even showed his name at one point, so that's in there too. So in case you're wondering what his name was, Look at the DMs between him and Cinder.
Care about Bao and Cotton, and would say Nano couldn't keep her word on the deal she agreed to because Silvervale asked her for a commission. Silver lost no work with Nano, and just like in November of 2023, Silver was the tipping point for her, so I don't know why she agreed to our deal to begin with. Red never got confirmation on whether Nano canceled Bao's model for the second time, but at this point didn't care. He had mostly moved on from his volatile feelings, and he no longer considered her competition. So of course, when it comes to November 2023, we'll be seeing that in Nano's section, but a huge chunk of what we're looking at now is also in Nano's section. Right? The next day, Nano would personally message Cinder telling her about her walking back the deal she made with Red, and Cinder was already aware because Red already told her. Cinder would say Nano got tired of hearing about Silvervale and didn't want to be involved in any issues regarding her, but didn't say anything about keeping her out of drama to Red. She faced no backlash from Red or I from going back on her word, even though I was upset because this was my last resort to try ending the comparisons between Silver and I. I was content with Nano working on what she wanted to and didn't hold it against her like always. So in these DMs we can see that Cinder would say, I get it, Nano, and it was unfair to push this on you, but it's really confusing going back and forth about it. Venting and saying that she gets compared to Silvervale a lot and it's like a shadow on her and it's like she's always living in someone's shadow, etc, etc. Cinder would then search both Bao and Cotton in her own DMs with Nano and she would find nothing, hoping to prove that she truly had no idea that they were included in this whole exclusivity agreement that Red had made. This leads us to the final messages that Cinder had ever had in DMs with Bao. It was on the 28th of March 2025, a few weeks before the drama had unfolded, and it was Bao warning Cinder about the Impractical Jokers drama, where a couple of people from the cast got outed for talking to younger girls, and she didn't want Cinder to bring it up without knowing the context. Cinder said, yeah, I saw the Joe allegations a while ago and it's just spiraling, and Bao would say, oh no, I know you like the show, I'm sorry, baby. The final subsection in Bao's section.
So Bao is apparently, in Red's mind, a terrible person, but she went out of her way to make sure that she learned about that. Okay, brother.
Would be being a bad friend, compromising with Red, and Boss Rush's role. This would somewhat be a recap to everything we just saw. She'd say that after her argument with Red in December of 2024, her and Red wouldn't talk about Bao again until sometime after her Heaven Hound debut. He pressured her not to interact with her professionally, and she wasn't going to agree to that. But at the same time, she didn't want to cause any problems between her and her husband at home. She'd say Bao was a friend that lived across the country, I only saw her every few months, and already didn't do things often with her. On the other hand though, she lived with Red, so she chose—
Oh, but it's okay, because you and Red like never talk or anything. Like you and Red maybe talk, I guess, once every so often where it's like convenient for you guys in here. I think you should have gone with Bao, to be honest, if you're just not going to talk to Red.
Chose to do just enough to keep the peace and to find a middle ground between them. She didn't plan anything.
Why is he even relevant enough to be beefing with a VTuber? He's a manager and a husband.
With Bao one-on-one.
It's kind of crazy how much influence this idiot has. I mean, not with anyone else, but mostly for Cinder. Cinder has the influence.
Which they already rarely did.
And mind you, let me remind you guys again, he's still working for her as her manager.
According to her, she didn't raid her in the time she was able to, and she didn't retweet artwork of them together on her NSFW Twitter account. Red didn't want to include Bao in anything Boss Rush related either, including collabs. Red would again admit that it was wrong of him to push his feelings about Cinder's friend onto her and expect her to essentially cut her off, and after months had passed by, he would open up to the idea of a 6-person Boss Rush song with all of Cinder's friends, including Bao. Cinder would then specify that she rarely talked to Bao outside of her friends group chat unless she messaged her first. So unless Bao messaged Cinder directly, Cinder wouldn't really interact with her much. This was even before her disagreement with Red. And this actually applied not just to Bao, but for most of her friends for a long time. She said that because of Boss Rush's inception in March 2024, she got to be closer friends with Tricky and Vienna than everyone else. She chose to prioritize them more, and then at some point she'd noticed that one of her friends was feeling isolated, so she wanted to include her in Boss Rush as well. That would be Yuzu. She wouldn't be able to really suggest this idea to Yuzu because of her cancellation, and then would go on to detail all the projects she was planning to do and had already done in 2025. This would all be in an effort to explain that she was spread too thin, that she was doing too much with too many different people and wasn't really able to give Bao the attention she deserved as a friend. Cinder would continue the document and say that the reason why she turned down Bao's song suggestion at the end of 2024 was because she didn't want to sacrifice the plans she already had for the year of 2025 and commit to another song, mentioning that even Numi said no to Bao at first because of her own schedule. This is in reference to the song that her, Numi, and Bao were meant to sing together. She'd then say, with how much more I was doing and planning with mine and Bao's other friends within our same friend group, and because of how I was neglecting her, Bao felt isolated also evident from her tweets in March. In March of 2025, Bao would make 2 tweets. The first one being, "My friends are busy, they do not hate me. My friends are busy, they do not hate me." She'd repeat that a couple more times. The other tweet would say, "Feeling alone in a crowded room sucks so bad." Cinder would also link the stream Bao would make as the drama was unfolding, where she explained how terrible the months leading up to it were, and here it is.
In every scenario, I try to wrap my head around what I would have done if I was in their shoes. I can't understand. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. We had been through so much offline and online, and there's nothing more confusing and more painful than seeing someone in your friend group be so kind and so warm to everyone around you, and feeling that they have slowly become colder and colder towards you.
So again, you just have to look back through what happened in this section, right? Her model gets canceled, everyone supports her, Cinder doesn't. Everyone leaves supportive comments on the Boss Rush music video, they all get hearted by Cinder, Bao's gets ignored. I'm sure there were other things in private too that contributed to Bao feeling this way, but this isn't easy. And for months, instead of blaming Cinder or thinking she's a terrible person, she would try to put herself in her shoes instead, thinking, oh, she must be busy, she must be doing this, I'm sure she missed my message, I'm sure she doesn't mean to do this, and boom. She would see Nano's messages, she'd see her friend's husband actively try to work against her, and this whole reality that she had fabricated around herself to cope with the idea that her friend was still her friend and wasn't being distant for any reason would shatter. So no wonder she cried her eyes out for 1 hour of this stream. Cinder would argue that regardless, they still did things together as a big group, but she understood how Bao must have felt. She wasn't including Bao in any of her own things, and when our friends had free time, it went towards our plans together, without her. At some point, Numi would say that Bao had confided in her about Cinder and the way she thought that Cinder felt about her, also linking a VOD in which Numi talked about this. Cinder would then say, but never did Bao try talking to me directly about how she felt, the same way I didn't talk to her about Red's feelings. She'd then say I was neglectful of Bao in my friendship with her and ignorant of how the things I did and did without her were making her feel. I stayed quiet and gave in to Red, hoping he would move on over time, never knowing what he did and said behind my back. I was an awful friend to Bao for months when she didn't deserve it. On the 26th of April 2025, Bao would post her document 6 minutes after Nano would post hers. According to Cinder, she was already removed along with Red from Bao's friend list at this point and blocked on Twitter. Cinder would end this section about Bao with a very ironic message. That message would be sent on the 27th of December 2024, saying, "This is a message I sent to another close friend at the end of December. Ironically, I didn't have healthy communication with my friends. I couldn't open up to them or talk to them about difficult subjects. I never spoke to Bao about anything that was going on. In the next section, I go over how my lack of communication hurt Numi too," another one of Cinder's friends. That ironic message that Cinder was talking about said, "I love when friends have healthy communication. Ugh, it feels so good." Congratulations, you made it to the end of Bao's section, but no time to breathe. As you saw, the next—
No, yes it is, because that is where I'm going to end this part. I just feel so bad for Bao. And just because your fuck-ass boyfriend, husband, whatever, has such a grudge against her for something that he fabricated against it in his own mind as such a delusional fucking person, it just really sucks to see, right? Because Bao doesn't deserve that. I know she's going through some controversy right now, but I don't think Bao deserves to be treated like that by people who are supposed to be her friends. Like, are you her friends, or like you can't be her friends and his husband too? You kind of have to make a choice of one or the other. Like, I can't. It's just so wrong. And if you never have another friend in the VTubing space, talking to Cinder right now, I wouldn't blame anybody, to be completely honest. And especially if you keep Red around, I could see why no one would want to have contact with you, wouldn't trust you to do projects, and wouldn't want to involve you in anything. And that's just me being completely honest, because it seems like no one else wants to be honest from the Hellhound household. No one else wants to be honest with anybody else, so I'll be honest with you. This is just it, and maybe later on we'll find something where I change my mind about her, but as of right now, I mean, it's not like I was gonna watch Cinder anyways. This doesn't change that in any way. This does change my mind on Nano, though. That's an interesting one. The Nanoless part was... It definitely opened my eyes to how Nanoless was really treated in comparison to how she talked about it, right? So that's interesting. But chat, this is where I'm going to end it. I just wanted to give some closing thoughts. Next episode, we'll probably go another 2 hours again. But chat, that's about it, chat. Let me know how you guys feel. Comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you gamers in part 2. Bye.